Gathering us back at 6:32 from closed session, where I will go ahead and report out. In closed session for item 1, negotiations, there was nothing presented. Item 2, same thing, nothing presented. For item 3, information was received. And for item 4, information was received and given related to the superintendent's contract. And I can add received an overall satisfactory. To be clear, satisfactory is the highest report we can give. So with that, I will move ahead to our Pledge of Allegiance. And Clerk McNary, would you be willing to lead us?
We begin. I pledge
Thanks. One nation, under God. With that, I think we have. I'll let Dr. Adamson do our next introduction.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Hazen. Well, I'm honored to be introducing our guest speaker this evening for our first presentation. It is Casey Rodenbush from Behavioral Health Services. She is the manager for Behavioral Health Services for Rainbow Connections in partnership with Monterey County Behavior Health. This year, I'm delighted to say that Ms. Rodenbush and her team have been incredible partners in our work to build safe, inclusive schools where every student feels they belong, one of our core values this year in PGUSD. Through staff training, parent education, bullying prevention support, and expressive art workshops like Everyone Belongs, their impact has been powerful. We're especially grateful for their partnership with the You Will Rise project, which uses art and storytelling to raise awareness about bullying and empowering student voices. Before I invite Casey to the front and to the podium this evening, I'd like to share a brief message from Principal Roach about how Rainbow Connections has partnered with PGMS this past year to support our students.
The more I learn about Rainbow Connections in particular, the more I see the need to really kind of put that in the DNA of the school. There's a huge need. We've been developing lessons for students on kindness and kind of generally how to act towards one another's. And we did this prior to COVID, but since COVID, it's a difficult thing for some students to be able to come to school knowing that some of the vernacular that our students use is offensive and icky. And so that affects whether they want to come to school, that affects, their discipline and their grades. And we have strong relationships with our kids so that they'll come and be able to kind of talk to us and say, these are some of the things that we're hearing. But almost as much of, learning about the wonderful things that Rainbow Connections does, there was also a swelling of students requesting something to be done about this, a safe place to go. And to bring their issues kind of globally within the school. And so we wrote advisory lessons. But the more I worked with Casey and the amazing opportunities that she gave us, the more I'm like, we need to do this as much as possible. And not only at this school, and we are happy to be the guinea pig, but it needs to spread district-wide, and hopefully the efforts that we have here can help schools all across the state and the nation because the need is there.
And that is definitely our intent, to spread it wider and further, Principal Roach. So please help me welcome to the front, Ms. Casey Rodenbush. Thank you for being here this evening.
How about now? Yes. Hello. Good evening, everyone. My name is Casey Rodenbush. I use she, they pronouns. I've been a services manager for Monterey County Behavioral Health and our Services to Education program. Next year will be my 10th school year managing a very large mental health program that spans the entire county of Monterey. And tonight I want to talk about the incredible work that we've been able to do in Pacific Grove Unified with the support of all of your administrators and what's happened over the course of this past year and what we've been able to offer. So next slide, please. So I will just say that this relationship started with my connection with Sean Roach. He reached out actually a little bit more than a year ago, wanting some support and can we respond to the needs that the students were bringing forward. And right about that time, I had just received funding for a project called Rainbow Connections that is a $7.8 million 5-year project that was granted through the state of California to support LGBTQ plus youth and the adults who care for them. So I was looking for opportunities to implement in districts, and your district was fully embracing everything that we had to offer. So what we did in this past school year, I just have some highlights here. We provided some welcoming schools training at the middle school there. We provided 2 modules. And with this training, Welcoming Schools is part of the Human Rights Campaign Foundation, and it's a program that's been around for about 20 years. It's evidence-based, it's very effective, and it really works with schools on how to identify bias-based bullying, not only students that have sexual orientation or gender identity that are different than the more typical presentation, but more all the different areas that students tend to either be impacted by bullying on the receiving end or bullying with the students that they're interacting with. So we provided 2 modules, and with the Welcoming Schools program, the way that this program works is we do 2 modules a year. There's 6 modules total, so this is a 3-year commitment. And it really works with staff and helping them understand ways to respond to bullying, how to create LGBTQ plus and gender inclusive schools. So that was really wonderful to be able to offer, and the staff responded really well to the training. We also were able to introduce a bullying prevention specialist through Harmony at Home. Our partnership with Harmony at Home has enabled us to place a bullying prevention specialist at Pacific Grove Middle every week, once a week on Wednesdays. So we started with that, with the site, and then we introduced the expressive arts component, which is really lovely. It's wonderful. The students love it. We were at the middle school and we merged with the Prism Club there. And we brought together the Anti-Bullying Club and the Prism Club, and we did a series of 4 expressive arts workshops, all centering around bias-based bullying. The kids loved it. We then brought it to Forest Grove Elementary. The kids also loved it there. At Forest Grove Elementary, we were also at the open house and displayed all of the art that the students worked on during the 4-week-long workshop series. And yeah, the bullying prevention specialist I'll mention will also provides one-on-one support and coaching for any student that's experiencing bullying, and then also working with all the adults around them and supporting where necessary. So the You Will Rise, we were able to also, I think if we go to the next slide, this is happening now. I was just there today at the student union at the high school. We have the high school student union for the June 3rd through the 27th, all through the duration of the summer school. And it's a very large space. It's beautiful and wonderful. And I was there watching them. They're so enthralled in their art. And I can just say, observing the way that the students are interacting, they really, really enjoy it. And youth that have experienced bullying in their school settings or in their life in general, it's really about helping them access different parts of their brain. Because our traumas and our challenges, we store them on the right side of our brain, and they're not really going to be accessed to the left side where the cognitive functioning comes in. So the expressive arts has been a wonderful outlet for them, and it's just been such a fabulous collaboration. We're planning to implement across the district where that's welcomed and where we can really partner with any site that would want to take advantage of all the different offerings we have. We have so many. It's a very multidimensional project, and we're just here to support the district and any site that would want to partner with us in meeting the needs of their learning community. So that's it for what I have to share. If there's any questions that anyone has about the work that we've done so far, I'm happy to answer them.
Lucy, thank you so much for presenting. Normally with our presentations at the beginning like this, they're not, they're not part of the actual agenda piece of it.
Okay.
So we don't open it up to questions, but
Okay.
I know that we, if there are items and if there is something that we think it would be worthy of, a return visit, we'll reach out for sure. But
Okay.
I just want to say thank you on behalf of our entire district, on behalf of our board, for the work that I've seen firsthand, you do in partnership with our middle school this year. I know, Principal Roach said it so meaningfully in the video that you said, but I know that this is something that he breathes and lives. And so the fact that really that's been able to be piloted here at the middle school with the intention now of, expanding that district wide, so many students have been impacted and, their lives changed as a result of that. And that's, that's the purpose and the intent. So
Yes.
we're so grateful for, your resources that you bring, but for most importantly, for your support and involvement and partnership with our school. There's so much more to come.
Yes.
Thank you again for being here this evening.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for the presentation. Might add a little bit during the next section because we're moving on now past our student rep to communications board member comments. And I tend to go first since I might get a few more emails than others. And then I will just go down the line unless anyone is chomping at the bit to go quicker. So in terms of emails, I received 2 regarding UPK, 1 regarding staffing at Forest Grove, multiple emails regarding a complaint, lost, and then a found regarding pieces of Ocean Guardians materials, and then a final video from the amazing Ocean Guardians program. And lastly, but not least, a thank you from community high school staff. So in terms of my comments, I mean, this will probably come up from most of us tonight is we just finished a whirlwind. Graduation is always a meaningful reminder, whether you're a parent or a board member or staff, why we do this work. And so I'm incredibly proud of our students and deeply grateful to the teachers and staff for seeing the year through with some bumps and bruises, but again, with such dedication. So I had one observation, just wanted to share from the high school, I thought the finals seemed to kind of stretch across the last 2 weeks of school. And I've heard Monterey High tends to have their finals the second to last week of school so that they could kind of wrap up some of the loose ends in the final week. So just wanted to bring that up. And I know they're not the only one that does that. I'm clearly not the expert, so I offer this as something to district staff and governance team as we continue refining how we support both learning and well-being, particularly at that time of the end of the year. The other thing I'll just mention quickly is seeing the emergency continuity plan on the consent agenda. I wanted to highlight the importance that I know our district has been working on towards the alignment and consistent use of things like technology and ensuring that assignments are available on a common platform, even across sites such as Google Classroom, across grades and subjects. It's really important. It's something I know some do better than others. So it's not meant as a kudos or a title, but it's more just to highlight how that kind of alignment not just prepares us for, in the case of these future remote learning needs, like the contingency plan, hopefully never needed again, but it also supports students during things like routine absences and helping them stay connected on track. So just want to put another plug. That's something I really value us putting the time in as a district to do better at. So with that, I will pass the microphone down the dais to Clerk Neri.
Thank you. Yes, thank you to all for the work and love put into celebrating all of our students at the various sites. I got to had the opportunity and the pleasure to go to many of the celebrations, and today was I think the culminating last one for us, the English as a second language certificate ceremony at the adult school. It's not a program that I knew very much about going into the ceremony today at all. And Trustee Shamos, you often kind of tout the adult school and what an amazing program it is. And listening to the stories of the students who come to the program to learn English from today, they mentioned 46 different countries this year alone. And what they find in the program not only is an increased ability to use English and feel more confident, but community, and kindness. And that stood out across all of their stories, as they weren't just learning how to relate to people in the United States, they were learning how to find people to have community with in our own little community. So it was really neat to hear their stories. And they're all so very different, and they're all also so aligned because they're there with the shared purpose. So very neat. And hearing Assistant Principal Arp say that the door is always open, like whenever you want to come back, you know, you're welcome at the adult school. It's really neat. The second thing is, for my comments is, happy Pride Month. And that thank you, Dr. Adamson and members of cabinet who came to the city's Pride flag raising ceremony earlier in the week. It was a lovely event and the biggest crowd I've seen so far. And thank you for your words at that as well, Dr. Adamson. So that's all for me today. Thank you.
Trustee Schmass.
Yeah, I'll just add to your, I couldn't go to the adult school ESL, but definitely have been a part of that. The one thing is that the state of California, well, maybe it's just federal too, that getting your citizenship and learning English and also getting your high school diploma as an adult are two free classes. They've always been free for adult education. So that's just something to remember in terms of, you know, how important we value welcoming immigrants and creating the opportunity for them to become citizens. So yeah, it's very cool and very heartwarming when you hear those stories. I only got an email that was maybe different from everybody else because it was directed right to me about my comment at the last meeting about parcel tax. And I mean, my comment was not necessarily to advocate for parcel tax. I was just making a comment that that is typically how you get a sustaining income when you're looking at adding full-time employees. And then the other thing, and then I want to also congratulate all staff, teachers, principals for the graduations. They were all so wonderful and affirming, and you know, it just is very heartwarming to see the culmination of such hard work, and the families too, the parents, you know, everyone very supportive, and we have a special district. And then the last thing is just regarding the little presentation here on the Rainbow Connections. And I'm always going to be bringing this forward, but I'd like to see evaluations of these programs. You know, we will typically, schools start new projects, new ideas that come on board, but we don't always do an official evaluation of those programs. And so, you know, they'll last for 5 years and then somehow they go away because whoever was into it isn't there anymore, you know? And so I really would like to have some kind of an evaluation of how this program is being successful. So then, you know, when we look at it and we have a way of saying, okay, yes, we know that when we put this program in practice, this is the results we got. So that's my. Let's see.
Thank you so much. Trustee Wax.
I love that evaluation kind of everything. It would be great. Also, huge congratulations to everyone on finishing the school year that then restarted Monday or whenever for Sunday for summer school. Really big break. But it was my first time seeing the whole, I mean, I didn't see the whole breadth, but it was the biggest view of our school district that I was able to see, and it's really impressive and astonishing. And I think I forget the number of how many people got scholarships from the high school. But it's truly incredible. And big congratulations to truly the teachers from TK or kindergarten, preschool through the high school, because a lot of the kids do stay here for their whole educational lives. So it's a real testament to the successes of our teachers and our staff and administration. And I think it was a good reminder about there's always more work to do, but we are really lucky to be in this district, and just to keep on improving ourselves, but also not despairing, because there's so much good stuff to be here. The only other email I got was my daughter graduated from Forest Grove, and she sent an email thanking her old teachers from the year before. And then her teacher emailed me saying, your kid's great. So both the teacher and the kid. True. I agree. So that's it.
Thank you so much. We're now going to shift over to our superintendent report.
All right, very good. Well, just, 4 things to report out tonight. And I think the first, I have to start with just the end to our year. And I really just want to call out our principals and our assistant principals for just your efforts in ensuring, number one, a successful end to the year, but really your ability to just showcase and highlight our students' successes it was bar none. You've heard it from each of our trustees. And I want to thank our trustees for just your efforts and time commitment to being in attendance at all of them. It was just really neat to have representation, of you and ready to showing that support. But to our site leaders, thank you. It was really neat also to see just this, each one has its own unique flavor. It's unique to each school. When you're looking at our 2 elementary promotions, our middle school promotion, and then of course, all of our graduations, just so meaningful. And these are emotional times as well. It was neat to just see, our families also being able to celebrate the joy. I talk about the magic of the first day, but really it's also the magic of the last day. And those really here, it's been the last 2 weeks. So just thank you all for supporting. I absolutely concur. I think, the number of scholarships that our students receive, but also seeing that list of colleges and trade schools, future plans that our students have in moving forward, that was unbelievably impressive as well. And so when we talk about college, it's college and career, right, ready. And so how neat to see. And I look forward to just being able to hear more about our students' successes as they move on in their journeys. Our last celebration, as Trustee McNeary indicated, was, yes, the ESL certificate celebration today. And you've said everything that needs to be said for that. But I want to just recognize Assistant Principal Arps for doing such a lovely job at just highlighting and showcasing each of the individual students in that program. It was wonderful to be there. Then I'm really proud and excited to share this. Our technology department has been working hard recently in the past few months on preparing for the full redesign of our district's website. It's a project that's not only timely, but also aligned with our commitment to fostering belonging and improving communication district-wide. So you'll be hearing more about this in the coming weeks, but I really just want to take a moment to just really thank and congratulate Director Al-Ghazi, who's been working very closely with Mr. Bradley in that work, and then really the collaboration that's happening there with Director Binder between our 2 technology departments. It's really been really neat to see, and now starting to sort of see it come to fruition as they're starting to get input and actually see some samples of what that's going to look like. I think that it's definitely a strong reflection of our culture in motion. You would have seen probably Mr. Bradley and Mr. Al-Ghazi did one of them at all of our graduation and promotion ceremonies, taking photos, and that's all going to be a part of our newly designed website to ensure that things are current and really showing students that we have currently enrolled and showcasing what's happening. So lots more will be coming out, but just wanted to really showcase that and acknowledge how excited we are about what's to come there. Then we had our universal pre-kindergarten family information night this last Monday, which was really well attended. I believe we had anywhere up to 15 parents in person and at least 4 to 5 online. And really, you know, I think our ability to be able to put out and give information about what that program is going to look like. We had Principal Arbrun and Principal Brownfield there, Principal Martinez, who was able to really speak specifically to some of the program offerings under that, you know, UPK universal, umbrella of offerings that are, you know, available at the adult school as well. But specifically, we had our families, you know, who were there wanting to find out more information. And I think that was incredibly well received. We had great questions that came through that. Thank you to Dr. Hagquist, who, you know, really has, you know, been leading so much of that work. And then, of course, our 2 teachers, you know, to have Ms. Samuels Kine and Ms. Erin Hamami there to really be able to speak personally to, you know, how excited they are about this program. More will be coming. We'll be, you know, continue to give more communication. We're grateful to our MOT team for, you know, the work they'll be doing in the summer to get that program moved over. So it's ready for opening in the fall of 2025. So lots to look forward to there. And then on the note of our MOT team, I'm looking over at Director Anderson at the back. Just special thanks to our MOT team and our, you know, custodial staff in all the work when we talk about these graduations and promotion ceremonies, you know, the amount of effort that takes in preparation and then the takedown. You know, as we were leaving that evening on Friday after the Pacific Grove High School graduation, who was there in the parking lot waiting for, you know, everyone to file out, but, you know, none other than, you know, our MOT team ready to, you know, start, you know, breaking things down. So Director Anderson, to you and your team, thank you. And I know now also the work begins, right? It's summer. You're going to see things happening on our campuses as well. So we're grateful. Thank you. And then my last little thing, you know, we had, I sent a message out earlier today. There was a little mini fire that started in one of our classrooms at Forest Grove today. It was a charger that overheated. And I just want to take a moment to commend our summer school staff. Principal, you know, Keller was there, but really all of our teachers who were in place, what I'm hearing. And in fact, we have a teacher here in the audience with us tonight. I don't want to call her out specifically, but what I'm hearing is just the fast action of staff, you know, coming together, really putting into practice what we practice for any time. We received unbelievable compliments from the fire department who showed up immediately as well. Everyone was evacuated out safely. You know, the fire was being able to be put out very quickly. And, you know, everyone, you know, we got the all clear, you know, pretty quickly as well for students to return to classrooms. But again, just in those moments, right, we do these drills for that reason, in order to be able to, you know, act quickly without having to really think about it. And that's really what our staff did. They were called to the table and they acted. So just thank you. You know, lots of kudos there is in order. And really with that, I'm going to turn it back to you, President Hazen.
Excellent. I think we have next item D, our safety report. Assistant Superintendent.
Thank you, President Dr. Hazen. Boy, that seems loud. On May 22nd, we had our end of the year safety committee. We covered all of the 24-25 safety committee recommendation accomplishments throughout the 24-25 year. Some of the training that the district pursued this year, which included our level 1 threat assessment and building our threat assessment teams. The AB 1741 active shooter training as it relates to training within the classroom, which will be rolled out next year, tied to We Got Your Back. Multi-district training with Monterey Peninsula Unified School District for our campus supervisor. Administrative and incident command training that took place, workplace violence prevention training that took place, and then the beginning of development of our behavioral threat and risk assessment level 2 program, which will roll out next year. So those are some of the accomplishments that we discussed at that meeting. Also, as it relates to better communication in the district, one of the other items that the committee tasked our district with this year, we implemented the public address system replacements district-wide. Better use of our Informacast systems to notify students first and foremost. That's one of the areas of concern that came out of the committee and from this board. Use of Google Chat for an added layer of redundancy, which is being heavily used now as it relates to subgroups within our district, especially related to emergencies. We performed some site radio upgrades, installing repeaters to give us better site coverage at our school sites. And then finally, as it relates to communication, the use of after-action reports, which really help the district and advise the district on challenges and successes that arose from our individual events that occurred in our district. And then finally, the facility infrastructure improvements. We implemented the visitor access management system, the VMS system, at all of our school district sites. some of the goals that came out of that meeting, the May meeting for the 25-26 year. I'm going to go ahead and go over those. To continue to develop multi-agency safety protocols for health and safety issues, update the PGUSD safety website to include all new health and safety related materials, begin to build, as I mentioned before, the level 2 behavioral threat and risk assessment teams, offer a FBI active shooter attack prevention and preparedness training, offer training on post-training reunification, raise awareness about online safety, and continue to raise awareness in our community regarding human trafficking. And that was basically the culmination of what we did this year and what we're doing looking forward. We plan to have another safety committee meeting in early fall and discuss some of those goals as they roll out for the 25-26 year. And then to highlight, as President Dr. Hazen mentioned in his comments earlier on consent tonight, we have the updated California Education Code requirement to provide the district's educational continuity plan. That's per ed code, and our district now is including that educational continuity plan in all of our comprehensive school safety plans at the district or at the site level. What this does is it covers the district for any form of a natural disaster, pandemic, or other public health emergency that could lead to long-term school closure. So we have to develop a plan. The plan has to be part of our comprehensive school safety plan, individualized for each school campus, and that plan is on the consent agenda for tonight. The plan does outline how we will reconnect students and families to the educational needs that they so require during any sort of a long-term outage. The ability to resume instruction remotely or in person, and then supporting temporary enrollment in other schools if necessary. So adopting the plan tonight is essential for protecting our students' learning. It meets our legal requirements, and as I mentioned, will be included in each one of the school sites' comprehensive school safety plans in 25-26. That's the end of my update tonight.
So thank you so much for the updates. Clearly, lots to celebrate this school year, yet the job is far from done. So with that, we're now on to section 5, individuals desiring to address the board. So I will read 2 statements about that, and then we will open this up to first community members and then PGUSD staff on non-agenda items. So public comment on any item of interest to the public that is within the board's jurisdiction will be heard. The board will also take public comment on each specific action item prior to board action on each item. Any individual wishing to comment on a specific item on the current agenda are kindly asked to wait until that item is being discussed. The board will allow a reasonable amount of time for public comment on each agenda item, not to exceed 3 minutes per speaker and no more than 20 minutes per topic or agenda item, pursuant to board policy 9323. Speakers will be called on sequentially, one online, one in the room, until there is no speaker coming forward on the agenda item or the amount of time allocated for the agenda item has elapsed, whichever comes first. This meeting of the Board of Education is a business meeting of the board conducted in public. So please note that the Brown Act limits the board's ability to respond to public comment. The board may choose to direct items to the administration for action or place an item on a future agenda. A reminder here again of our shared commitment to this culture of we, fostering safe, respectful, and inclusive space here and beyond, both in the boardroom and online. So to support this, we ask attendees refrain from applause, finger clicking, or any form of acknowledgement in response to a speaker's viewpoint on a particular issue. Again, kudos for actions are totally allowed. This ensures all individuals feel comfortable sharing their perspectives without fear or judgment or retaliation during the meeting and in online spaces. Our core values guide all that we do, including how we engage as a community, as we are all good stewards for how to behave. Thank you for helping create a space where all voices are respected. Ooh, I need a drink of water after that. So with that, we will open up to public comment on non-agenda items from community members. Seeing one online and none in the room, we'll go ahead to Molly Daniels, please.
Yeah, okay. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Hello.
I'm clear.
Okay, hi. I'm just curious about the progressive flags in the district. All of the schools are flying them except for Robert Down. And this happened last year, and I know that the flags were being ordered and the board just passed a resolution that year, that in June. But I'm just curious about why all the other schools are flying it during Pride Month except for Robert Down. That's first. And then second, there was a comment in the last board meeting or the board meeting before that about the property deeds and how the district should look at reclaiming them. And I would like to hear you guys expand more about that in a future meeting. And yeah, so that's it.
Thank you so much for your comments. With that, anyone in the room or online? Going once, going twice. We're now moving on to the PGUSD staff comments on non-agenda items. Looks like we have one person in the room. Please, Ms. Gwendolyn.
Hello, Mary Quindamel. I've been speaking at the past board meetings to bring awareness about PGUSD being represented by someone that doesn't seem to share our values and our beliefs. On May 14th, that attorney stated that I was part of a crusade against the district. This couldn't be further from the truth. I am for this district. I believe in PGUSD, and that's why I get up here each board meeting. I don't believe that we are being represented appropriately, and I've been trying to get someone to look into it because I believe you also would be outraged by the manner in which our legal representative is conducting business. After being really hurt by words that are so far from the truth, I thought of my colleague who's had to endure much worse consistently for almost 3 years. And I decided that I wasn't going to let false words or inaccurate depiction of my character silence me. Then yesterday, June 4th, that same attorney wrote some comments about me showing up at the board meetings, and that now I am part of some cabal against the district. There is no secret plot. Getting up and speaking at a board meeting is the furthest thing from being a secret. I share this because this is another example of how this attorney is making false claims and misrepresenting PGUSD by using intimidation tactics to try to silence anyone in opposition of his means to negatively control every aspect of the case. Well, he must not have gotten the memo that we, PGUSD, are a district that advocates for see something, say something. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. Please help me advocate for ethical and honest representation of our district. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments tonight. Do we have anyone else online or in the room? If not, we will move on to item 6, our consent agenda. So these are items considered to be routine or may have been discussed at a previous board meeting. So they will not be discussed unless a member of the board requests specific items be discussed and or removed from consent agenda. And each item on the consent agenda approved shall be deemed to have been considered in full and adopted as recommended. So with that, I'll go through to all items through you and see if there's any public comment on consent agenda. One false call. If not, I'll come back to the board and start with Trustee Wax.
Yes, I'd like to pull item H, the Monterey Bay Charter School lease agreement amendment, and the contract for, and item I, contract for services, Wonder Roofs, off the consent agenda as well.
So one, just point of order, should we move this after the public hearings to our first items under action discussion? Make sense?
I would, yes, agree with that.
So they will be items AA for item H and AB for item I. Making note. With that, anyone else? Trustee Shamas? Okay. With that, I will go ahead and make a motion to approve the consent agenda, moving items H and I to the first items under the action. If I can get a second.
I'll second.
Okay, motion made by myself, seconded by Clerk Mary. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Passes 4-0. So we're now on to the public hearings, a tentative agreement with PGTA. Item 1, I think this will be first of a number of things we'll hear from you tonight, Chief Rogan. So with that, I should also go ahead and open the public hearing at 7:12 p.m.
Good evening, trustees. I'm Buck Rogaman, the Chief Human Resources Officer for PGUSD and also the lead negotiator for the district in our negotiations with the Pacific Grove Teachers Association. What you have here before you for this public hearing is the tentative agreement that was reached. And I think that you will recognize by the sheer size of the document, the amount of work that went into the negotiations this year. And you can only get to this much of an agreement if the two sides work well together in the negotiating room. We have one of the lead negotiators here with us this evening, Mary Quindemill, and it was a very productive, engagement that the two sides had. And the two sides always felt as though that we were working toward finding a resolution and not trying to posture and just get our way. I think when we're looking at this agreement, the thing that stands out the most is a recognition of the difficult financial situation that the district is in. For the year 2024 and 2025, PGTA agreed to take no compensation increase. I think that that's an important thing to note. And then also, you're going to see that this agreement not only is for 24-25, but it's also good all the way through 26-27. It is a 3-year agreement. In the subsequent years, 25-26 and 26-27, we're looking at a 2.0 increase to the salary schedule. Even though the financial times are difficult, we still need to be able to remain competitive with regard to salaries and compensation for our employee groups. And so there will be a 2% increase in 25-26 and 26-27, along with a 0.5% increase both years to the health and welfare benefits for our PGTA members who take them. That's really kind of a summary of the financial aspects. There are multiple other things that you'll see in that tentative agreement. If anybody has any questions about those, I think we should be able to answer them this evening. So with that, I'll open it up to any questions that the trustees may have.
Looking around to see if anyone is jumping to the mic first. I will say just some comments. I mean, I know the 0% is not in the cover page, for example, but that is a huge hit to the teachers and the staff. And I really respect them for taking that, given what we're facing. Since I've been on the board, we've heard from teachers and I probably should be making this during the board comments after, but how late retroactive raises are not ideal. And this is the first that since I've been on the board and since I remember listening, we've been able to do that. So I'm really proud. And, I do think this sounds probably trite to say, but it's always, we should ideally be able to do more. I mean, we know how important staff are to our community and to our district. So I don't have anything else to say to this, but I just know this was a long drawn out process by design where it took both parties a lot of their life to sit down together and come up with what we have in front of us. So,
if I may, Mr. President, I think that one of the things to note too is that as long as the process was, we did come to an agreement sooner this year than we have in years past. That we had actually reached the tentative agreement by the spring break in terms of the financials, the compensation. So I think just that goes to show again just the amount of work that went into it and the tenor of the negotiating room.
Great point. I think with that, I can go ahead and, were you going to say something? Okay, Trustee Schwartz, go ahead. Sorry.
Just echoing what you said, and kudos to the teachers and staff administration that did all the negotiating, because it is a lot of work. And also just, it's worth reading the contract because a lot of the things that come up are already stated in this contract. I'm looking at class size, combination classes. So these things have already been negotiated, and a lot of times people aren't aware that we have a set of standards that we use and we abide by. So with that, I'm happy that we got a good deal.
I would just say congratulations. It's a huge undertaking from everyone involved. So unfortunately, I don't have anything else like to add, but I do appreciate everyone working on it so diligently.
With that, I will go ahead and close the public hearing at 7:18, and now we have our moment for public comment, and then we'll come back to the board if there's anything else to add.
Okay, the public hearing that we're going to have now is going to be.
Wait, just a second. We still have public comment and board discussion on this one. I think, right?
I think so too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just to be clear.
Okay, sorry.
No, it's okay. This is the public hearings always throw me off because it's like
Me too, clearly.
board. Yeah, I know it's tricky. So yeah, no public comment. No board. Anything else we'd like to add? Right. Oh, we have one public comment.
Mary Quindamill. I'm one of the lead negotiators with Lauren Davis, but she's out of the state right now on vacation, so it's me. On behalf of PGTA, I wanted to express our gratitude to the board for the acceptance of our negotiated offer, the time, effort, and consideration that went into the negotiating process with PGUSD are appreciated. This agreement is believed to represent a positive step forward in these hard times for both PGUSD and for PGTA. So I just wanted to also thank the negotiating team for the district. I think that we work really well and we have everybody's interest and well-being at heart. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the comments. It's back to the board, not seeing anyone rushing on the mic, since we already gave comments as well, but just again, huge thanks to all involved. So we're on to public hearing number 2.
Okay, this is a public hearing that is going to talk about the tentative agreement that we have.
Interrupting again, gaveling us in, since we're doing that again at 7:20. Now you can continue, Buck. I promise I'll do my best not to interrupt you again.
Take 2. Trustees, I bring before you the tentative agreement with PGUSD and the California School Employees Association Pacific Grove Chapter 229. This is an agreement for fiscal years 2024-25 and 25-26. It is not inclusive of 26-27 because the CSEA contract works in 3-year cycles. And so the third year will be negotiated when that contract is open. There is an understanding that the employee groups get treated the same, but we cannot negotiate that until we're ready to negotiate for 26-27. You're going to notice a lot of similarities between this negotiated settlement and the one we did with PGTA, that the CSEA employee group, much like PGTA, recognized the difficult financial times that the district is facing, and they took 0% compensation for 24-25. For 25-26, they agreed to a 2% increase across the board and a 0.5% increase for health and welfare. I think a couple other things to point out in the tentative agreement with the CSEA are things such as a bilingual incentive stipend. What this is going to do is going to recognize those employees that work in our district who oftentimes serve to interpret when families come in that don't speak English. And this is going to be a way for the district to be able to compensate those unit members that step in at those times to interpret for our families. I think that pretty much points out one of the highlights that we wanted to mention in this tentative agreement. So with that, if the trustees have any questions, we'll be happy to speak to them.
And now we're into the hearing. We'll go through the trustees again. I'll echo my comments just on the previous one. One thing I didn't mention, I'll just say again here is that 0.5%. I know that the cost of healthcare is going up and just want to make it again clear how important that is to me as a board member, that we do our best to close that gap. And I'm glad we're doing that, albeit maybe not as much as we could in a better fiscal environment. So
just for the education of maybe Mike, in this packet, you'll see that the Monterey County Office of Education has these questions that we have to answer regarding our settlements that we agree to. So that's why that's there, because we have to satisfy the county office that basically that we are able to abide by this contract fiscally. Correct.
okay. With that, I will go ahead and close the public hearing at 7:23 and open it up to public comment. We have one online, it looks like. I'm guessing Leslie Chernullo, perhaps. Yes,
Hello, can you guys hear me?
loud and clear.
Great. I'm Leslie Chernullo, the CSCA chapter president, and on behalf of CSCA, I would just like to thank the board for your time and consideration for our TA this year. And thank you to my CSCA classified negotiations team, which is myself, Greg Kelly, Jill Houston, Nargis Akavi, Christine Gruber, and our incredible labor representative, Sarah Herrera. As Director Rogaman has said, we share a positive and productive relationship with the district, and we're very grateful for that. I also want to thank the district's team who works with us, which is Chief Rogaman, Assistant Superintendent Jorn, Director Cork Anthony, and Assistant Principal Tavani. And until next year. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the kind words and all the effort going into it. So with that, we go back to the board. Not seeing anyone grab the mic, so I will go ahead and move us towards our action discussion section. I closed it at 7:23. Okay, so for action discussion, our first item is AA, item H, which is the Monterey Bay Charter School lease agreement. And I think with this, is there probably not maybe a little presentation, but more just probably just to jump right into the concerns from Trustee Wax.
It's basically, we are proposing to increase the rent by 2.5%. Is that correct? There's a maximum of 5% that we could increase it. And was there any discussion or reasoning why we shouldn't increase it beyond the minimum of 2.5?
Yeah, the way that their lease agreement reads is that the increase year over has to coincide with the cost of living adjustment included in the governor's budget proposal. So being that the COLA this year was presented in the governor's budget proposal of just under 2.5%, the minimum's 2.5. If there was a 4% COLA, the lease allows us to increase the rent by 4%. And that's written in the original lease agreement executed in 2002, I believe.
But I have to find it again, but the lease could go up to 5%, even though the COLA didn't go up by that much, or is that untrue?
Oh. Yeah, the minimum is 2.5%, the max is 5%, and if it's anything above 2.5%, it has to follow the COLA. So as I mentioned, it says it in the lease agreement where if the COLA is in excess of 2.5, the district's increase matches that COLA. Being that it was less than 2.5, we basically round up to the minimum, which is 2.5% increase year over.
But it doesn't have to be the minimum. Is that correct? Am I misunderstanding? Like we could raise the rent more than 2.5%.
Not, we have to renegotiate the lease.
Gotcha.
Is my understanding. It's written in, so this is tied. As long as the COLA goes up, we go up by that. So, and I guess my question would be, when is the lease renegotiated next on our, what are we coming?
So the way the lease was set up, it was set up in perpetuity where there is no term on the initial lease agreement. All we bring is amendments forward. So this year, we're bringing an amendment forward. If the board so desires, we can absolutely look to renegotiate the lease. There's an opt-out clause in the lease. There's a termination agreement clause in the lease. If the district wanted to renegotiate the terms of the original lease, we would have to bring that back. Well, I think it's 30 days notice is actually what it requires us to do.
And I think timing wise, the problem is this would result in an eviction notice for the school if we did that, if we don't approve this now. And I personally would not want to go down that path, but I like the idea. Again, I know it came up before of exploring opportunities for, changes such as that. So.
Yeah, thank you for making clear about the rent increases and how we'd have to rework it. Great, thank you.
So with that, we probably should have gone to public comment first. I forgot since it is a pulled consent item. Seeing any, I'll come back to the board, and I'm not seeing anyone grab the mic. So would you like to make a motion regarding this, Trustee Wax? I'll look at you since you pulled it, or if you not, I'm happy to.
No. Or yeah. Actually, I don't know how to, so I will make a motion. Okay.
Yeah, so I will go ahead and make a motion to approve the item as discussed now, which is now item AA. And so I can get a second on that motion. I'll second to approve it. And that will be a motion made by myself, seconded by Trustee Wax. So all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so with that, it passes 4-0. And yet, since it was on consent, once we pull it, now it's like any other action item. We just bring it up and move to either address it or let it pass off. So now we have the Wonder Woofs.
Whichever it may be. In correspondence prior to this meeting, I wondered what is the list of drugs that Wonder Woofs can detect. And Assistant Superintendent Jorn responded, Wonder Woofs detects over-the-counter medication, vapes, marijuana, tobacco, certain creams and body sprays, probably Axe, any residue from illicit drugs, explosives, gunpowder, and others. But I think most alarmingly in our district, the focus has been fentanyl, and that's not able to be smelled by Wonder Woofs. And so my personal opinion is like that would be the first and foremost thing to be sniffed out, and then the tenor of a dog doesn't engender the feeling that I sort of like at a school, especially if it's sniffing Tylenol or body creams, Tinactin, whatever. I feel like that could get a lot of people on the edge with not that much payoff. And we just consented to approve vape sensors and that sort of thing. So that is my hesitancy in approving this
Can I ask
admittedly pretty small contract.
a quick follow-up on that though? Just can you let us know, like, because my understanding of this contract said up to 3,000. So how much did we spend on it last year? Do you know? It's okay if not. But did we spend the full 3,000? As my guess is.
It's a not to exceed contract. I'd have to get back to you on how much we
That's
spent.
perfect answer. But I guess part of my point is this is something where we could approve and maybe suggest that they look for other alternatives coming forward, that do target fentanyl if that's the concern of the board. Or again, we could not approve it too if it's something we're concerned about. So. Trustee Shimas next, or did you have something to follow up?
I guess is there a certain schedule for when Wonder Woofs comes in, or like the reason why Wonder Woofs would be on campus or that sort of thing?
Yeah, I would defer to Principal Roach on that. I will mention that every visit is a $300 visit to the district, and if you'd like me to bring back the number of visits per year, I can do that as an item down the road if the board so desires. But
let's see if that comes up.
Principal
for this discussion. Yeah.
Good evening, Sean Roach, principal of Pacific Grove Middle School. Actually, the gentleman that handles the dogs actually gets in touch with us several months prior, and we kind of give them a little bit of a window, and that's when we bring the dogs in. We generally do it semester 1, and we do it semester 2 as well. So I do have to say the kids adore the dogs. They love them. They want them in the classrooms. We don't let them in the classrooms.
Oh, so am I allowed to?
Please.
So besides petting the dogs, which seems like
It's
you can't
fun.
pet a drug dog, but did the woofs do their woof work?
To the best of their ability, yes, they did. Some of the markers that they found were body sprays and lotions, sometimes gum, that kind of stuff. And so in the last, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, we haven't had any positive hits. But at the same time, if a student were to kind of think about doing something like that and saw a dog walking down the hall, it might be a good deterrent.
But it comes once a semester usually.
Yeah, once a semester, unannounced.
Right, but it's a random one
Yeah,
to woof.
unannounced.
So I would say, I mean, if you don't mind me putting you on the spot, Principal Roach, like,
Sure.
your thought, opinion. I mean, obviously it was on consensus, it was district recommendation to go ahead with it, but do you think it is something net positive for the costs?
I do. Absolutely, I do. Yeah, and like I said, you know, I can't smell that well, so I think the dogs are a lot better at it than I am. But it gives myself and our school a sense of relief when it comes back as a, you know, a good event.
So like when a kid is just reeking of Draco Noir and the dog sniffs them, what is the process for?
So the process in general is students will be in class during that time. And so we'll walk them down the hallways. We are not able to touch the dog at that time. You have to ask permission to do that. And so the dogs will run all the lockers up and down all the halls. They'll go into the gym lockers. They'll go to all the lockers within the school. They'll kind of run outside. And that's kind of what we're looking for. So they're not going into classrooms and sniffing kids or anything like that. But when they walk by is when the kids see them and want to go out and pet them. After which they generally come out and the dog is able to be petted at break or lunchtime or something like that. So the students are not directly involved in the endeavor.
Oh no, but I mean like the false positives, what happens then? Like if the dog.
So what happens is, you know, we'll open the locker and kind of check the locker and see if, you know, if there's anything in there, and it's generally Axe or hand lotions or Bed Bath and Beyond or something like that.
I'm not familiar with the lockers. You open it with the child present?
Well, no, we open it up with a key so they can see if there's anything in there. Yeah. If it's a positive, we want to know about it immediately.
Is that how the lockers are at the high school as well?
I believe so.
Yeah, I don't know if we've used this particular company, but we've used dogs for quite some time.
Yeah.
And again, we should have an evaluation of the program so we know, hey, you know, this year came in twice a year, nothing was found, you know, just a simple evaluation, but we should know. And if there is any upgrades to the kind of search, that would be helpful too. You know, but in the lockers, the kids don't have any rights to their lockers in the handbook.
Yeah. I know the principal for the high school's new, but were there any, did you have any experiences this year with Wonder Roofs? Sorry.
Greg O'Mara, principal, both high schools in Pacific Grove. I share Principal Roach's opinion that the students love the dog. I don't know that I share as much in the sense of them being on campus to as a deterrent. My concern is the false positives. I have to be really honest. we found ourselves in a couple of situations this year that were really unpleasant due to false positives. And I would welcome more conversation around the purpose of Wonder Wolves in terms of the deterrent there. I do know that Wonder Wolves has other services available, for just having a dog on campus during finals week, and just there are things that you can do with Wonder Wolves that aren't related necessarily to the drug deterrence. So I guess I'm not as much in favor as perhaps at the middle or the elementary schools in terms of the drugs and the explosives and such.
Well, appreciate the candor there. Yeah.
Can I ask a quick follow-up? Without like breaking privacy or anything, how was it unpleasant with the false positives?
Well, when there is a false positive, right? You're just from the logistics of the situation and in real time, you're calling the student out because of their locker being hit, so to speak. And so there's always that risk of the student becoming embarrassed or the student becoming singled out, quite frankly. And if it's a false positive, then that student has gone through an experience that is unpleasant, and parents can have a certain reaction to that as well, which we experienced. So yeah, I'm sorry, I caught a little off guard, and just in terms of I want to I'm a proponent of safety, and I want things that act as deterrents, but I also don't like to single out students on false positives, and so that's my main concern.
Thanks. Hey,
Any other comments, concerns from the board? I mean, I think I'll just say one quick thing that, one of our kind of a discussion here are options. We could approve, we could not approve the contract. We could approve and ask them to come back, the district to come back with other options moving forward. So I think there are a few things we could do here, but just again, making it kind of clear from the get-go on what that is. But yeah, Trustee Shema, sorry to jump in front.
No, I think we have it in policy. We could relook at what policy we have, and it might be good to update it and determine whether it's useful. If we're not really getting the kind of satisfaction that we thought we were going to get, then we can rethink whether we want to continue.
And just quickly, it also sounds like it might be more useful at the middle school and the high school. So that might be, again, a situation that we sign we approve the contract, but we say it's not a requirement. It's just again, you can have a threat of a random Wonder Wolf that doesn't actually show up too, if the deterrent is the main goal. Yeah.
Right. And I mean, I think it speaks to your comment about evaluation of programs, right? I think this is an opportunity for that. And, correct me if I'm wrong, Assistant Sup John, but if we, sign the contract, I mean, it could be a situation where if it's, being found to be valuable at one site, it could be that at the, Principal O'Meara, exercises that option to not call them out, right? We would have that ability to do that, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And through that contract, possibly we could look at, what other services would you, defer to as well. So it would give us that ability to do that.
Any other discussion? If not, I will look towards a potential motion. If not, I'm happy to make a motion that we approve the contract, but with the explicit note that it should be used only by site for the utility of the site. It should not be a requirement for the site. So it doesn't need to change that, but at least just a little bit of direction to accompany it. That would be my motion. Could I get a second to that?
Just add to that.
Please.
I think let's make sure that I think we will add that to our next policy committee as well, because there is policy that does speak to that. And so that'll be, part of our next action as well, right?
Perfect. And the other direction I'll say is it would be great to have, district get the point brought up by Trustee Shamas about evaluation. I mean, it's not just this item, but more broadly. Okay, motion still made. Can I get a second on that?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Okay, so motion was made by myself, seconded by trustee Shamas. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Aye. Or
Nay.
no.
Okay, so that,
Are you opposed?
I'm opposed.
yeah, so that passes 3-1, 3 in favor, trustee Wax opposed. So thank you very much. Everyone for participating. That was a very, actually, one of the more fun consent agenda items I've ever been part of with input and everything. So going next, we're now on to resolution number 1160 under action discussion, recognizing June 19th as Juneteenth. And I'm going to have Dr. Adamson present, but then I think we're going to ask if it's okay, trustee Shamas, to do our reading of this item. So go ahead, Dr. Adamson.
Well, absolutely. It's my pleasure to bring forward for the board's consideration this evening a resolution recognizing June 19th as Juneteenth, a day that commemorates the end of slavery in the United States and honors the enduring strength, resilience, and legacy of our African American communities. As a district, we remain deeply committed to promoting equity, inclusion, and dignity for all students, staff, and families. Recognizing Juneteenth is just one way we affirm this commitment and continue our work to create inclusive learning environments where the diverse identities, histories, and contributions of our community are valued and honored. I will now turn to Trustee Shamas to please read the resolution for us. Thank you, Trustee Shamas.
Trying to give you a little advance warning again there, but I could probably done it more. Yeah, there's a lot in here.
All right. Resolution recognizing June 19th, 2025 as Juneteenth. Whereas June 19th is the time that many in our nation recognize Juneteenth as the holiday that celebrates Emancipation Day, the day in history when the last state ratified the Emancipation Proclamation. And whereas this date marks the time period where African Americans of Texas received notice from President Lincoln that slavery had been abolished, a declaration that was codified in the 13th Amendment of the Constitution of the United States of America. And whereas June 19th also marks the day that African Americans in the southern states exercised independence from those who benefited from their labors in the founding of this nation. And whereas the journey of African Americans represents both great achievements and great hardship. And whereas our nation is currently witnessing the injustice of the African American journey that have existed for far too long, this June 19th celebration weighs heavily on our hearts and on our minds, as many African Americans continually are not treated equally under the law. And whereas the pain and anguish displayed on our national stage developed from generations of systemic racism that impacts our students, families, staff, and communities, and whereas the educational institutions of this nation, including Pacific Grove Unified School District, has a particular responsibility to recognize the painful realities of our history and to make sure that our curriculum reflects these realities. And whereas working with the community, the Board of Education of the Pacific Grove Unified School District is committed to identifying actionable items to improve policies and procedures to improve access to opportunities to ensure that students, families, and staff do not experience inequities in the schools of the Pacific Grove Unified School District. And whereas we value diversity and are united in our opposition to racism and hate, we stand in solidarity with our African American students, educators, staff, and their families. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Pacific Grove Unified School District hereby officially commemorates Juneteenth as a day to celebrate and emphasize a collective call to action against injustice of any kind. Passed and adopted by the Board of Education of Pacific Grove Unified School District this 5th day of June, 2025. By the following vote.
Thank you so much. Hopefully to come. We have public comment first on this item. None online, none in the room. I'll go ahead just quick. Oh, one online, please. Yes, Molly Daniels. wait a second longer just to see, but if not, I will make a quick comment on this. I mean, I'm extremely proud of our board in supporting this resolution. It was something that I think it was you, Clerk McNary, that helped recognize a lot of these important dates in our district. And it's obviously a meaningful step in honoring the legacy of Black freedom and resilience, but also recognizing the hard truths of our nation's history. I think it doesn't go without saying, but it is said in the resolution, this recognition alone is clearly not enough. And our district is on this road and is on the right road, but it must still be matched with an ongoing commitment to equity, justice, and real systemic change in our schools and communities. So again, glad to hear it read. Also glad to think about what more we can do. So anyone else? Okay, if not,
that we had an incident that prompted our whole development of the culture of we. And so this is particularly relevant to our district. And so it should be something that, is that we can point to and say that this is something that we are directing ourselves toward. And I like the part that says that we are incorporating in our curriculum, because that's where the change happens and discussions can happen and create something that's meaningful.
Well said.
Can I add something to that? I think that's also where, our goal of our LCAP, right? Our cultural proficiency goal is very much, I was born out of the work that we've been doing, over the past few years as a district. And the fact that that was embedded into our LCAP this year really speaks to, that commitment that we're making towards accountability, the fact that we have specific measurable goals and actions that are connected to that we report out on each year now as part of our LCAP process. And so, very proud of that. And then even with our new EL curriculum, the adoption we're making for our language arts curriculum this year for elementary, really one of the tenets of that and one of the reasons that was selected by our teachers is that commitment. And really so much of those, tenets of cultural proficiency that really speak to our core value of, belonging and inclusion, right, that is embedded in that. So very proud of those two very specific actions.
See, we have a member of the public, but we've passed public comment, so I apologize. We're not going to be able to get back to that. Anyone else from the board?
I think just to add to what was said by Trustee Samas and Dr. Adamson, it's an opportunity to learn all of our history. And there are events, not just in PGUSD, but locally in our community, where you can go and listen to stories and ask questions and learn about Juneteenth, because I'm imagining that most of us didn't get the history lessons or in our learning as adults. I am. And so that's coming up we're in June, Juneteenth celebration, Juneteenth Jubilee, the 14th at 1:00 at Laguna Grande Park in Seaside. So it's celebration, it's joy, it's lots of music, it's amazing food, and it's community. So yeah, it's an invitation.
Okay. With that, can we get a motion?
I'll move that we approve resolution number 1160.
Okay, and I'll go ahead and second that. So the motion was made by Trustee Shamas, seconded by myself. All in favor of adopting the resolution, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So with that, it passes 4-0. Thank you very much. So now we're on to the adopted budget with Assistant Superintendent Jorn.
All right, this will not be my 45-minute presentation as presented at the public hearing 2 weeks ago. The information is in the packet. There was no direction from the board to make any changes to the budget that came out of our public hearing 2 weeks ago. Just to highlight a couple of items here, the district has a projected operating deficit, which is combined restricted and unrestricted of $1,037,535, with a projected Reserve level down to 6.9%. Again, these are projections, and I will add, before I open it up to questions from the board, that we do bring forward a second adopted budget in October. So not all districts do that. We do. We present our unaudited actuals in September, which will paint a better picture for the district as to where this district landed in 24-25, especially with revenue and with expenditures as well. And then we will bring forward in October a revised budget. But we are presenting the budget tonight, the same budget that was presented at public hearing for adoption tonight. Open it up for questions.
I'll start on the far side with trustee Wax and then head towards myself. Trustee Shmas.
I pass the mic to trustee Shmas.
Can you just remind me what Child Development Fund funds?
Yeah, Child Development Fund 12 is related to our Early Learning Opportunity Program, or our BASRP program, as well as state preschool and the preschool programs that are not under adult education, which is Fund 11.
Clerk Canary.
I don't have anything to add. I think we've talked about this at length, and we're in positive position. So, I mean, that's where we're at for now. We'll continue to have budget discussions, obviously, but for tonight purposes, I'm comfortable approving the budget.
I agree. This is the beginning, not the end of the process. So I think I'm excited to see, maybe excited is not the right word, but I look forward to seeing what we can do to, again, get our reserve back up to where it needs to be, but realizing some hard changes are to come. Or decisions, I should say, to come. So with that, does anyone like to make a motion? Oh, I'm so sorry. I went to board discussion first. Public comment on the adopted budget. Thank you for reminding me. Sorry about that. Okay, none online, none in the room. So with that, can I get a motion?
I'll move to approve the adopted budget for fiscal year 25-26.
And a second?
I'll second.
Motion was made by trustee Wax and seconded by clerk McNary. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes 4-0. So we're on to item C of action discussion, the tentative agreement following on our public hearing, first public hearing.
Thank you, President. This is the action item that goes along with the public hearing that we had on the tentative agreement with the Pacific Grove Teachers Association. One thing I'd like to point out that is sort of related to the Juneteenth item that we passed is that one of the negotiated items was updating the California standards for the teaching profession in our evaluation documents. Typically, if you're going to change an evaluation document, that could be a long drawn out process with PGTA. But in taking a look at the language for the CSTPs, they very much speak to recognizing the various cultures that come into the classrooms and trying to direct our instruction to include as many of those cultures in our instruction as we can. And so if you get a chance, take a look at the CSTP evaluation documents that are in the tentative agreement. And I think that you can see one example of the district's effort to make a systemic change. If you can change the evaluation document for the PGTA members, then that's one of those things that helps change the system.
Thank you very much. We'll go ahead and open this up to public comment again. Seeing none in the room and none online. I'll go back to the board discussion. I have nothing on this one since the hearing. Seeing nothing else. I will go ahead and make a motion to approve the tentative agreement, item C. Can I get a second?
I'll second the motion.
Okay. Motion made by myself, seconded by trustee Wax. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Passes 4-0, sorry. Unless I can't count, it passes 4-0. So with that, we're on to item D. Chief Rogerman again.
Item D is the tentative agreement with the California School Employees Association Pacific Grove, Chapter 229. I just want to echo the words of CSEA President Leslie Turganello and just recognize the enormous amount of work that was accomplished with CSEA this year. And as she pointed out, Regional Representative Sarah Herrera has devoted hours to helping bring our district forward in not only the negotiations process, but putting in place processes that are going to help address the needs of our CSEA employees.
We'll open up to public comment. Thank you for the presentation. Nice. Okay, if not, back to one online. Go ahead, Holly Daniels. I want to miss you again, so we will wait a little bit longer.
Hello?
Yes, please go ahead,
Hi.
Holly Daniels.
Hi. I don't know if you heard me before. Maybe that was the issue before, but I didn't get to speak, and my family is and does belong to and identifies as the descendants of African enslaved individuals. And so I didn't get to talk last time. I put my hand back up, and then I was told I couldn't talk again. And what I wanted to say as I reclaim my time is that when we're talking about bringing in Wonder Wolves, you know, the carceral system is made in such a way where, you know, students, especially Black students, are sent the school to prison pipeline. And having something like that, like the Wonder Wolves come in, can be detrimental to this demographic specifically. And so I wanted you guys to think about too, as you are making decisions about, you know, the Wonder Wolves, and then bringing in a Juneteenth proclamation, that there is a direct correlation between those two, where the prison system was designed to recapture freed people who were enslaved. And so just be mindful about how you conduct the meeting, and, you know, and also recognizing that this is a reality, and also being mindful about the community and, you know, what we have to say about it, and giving us a chance, especially impacted community members. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the comments. Try to give a little more time for raising of hands. With that, we go to board discussion. Looking around, not seeing anyone grabbing the mic. I will see if there is a motion on this item. If not, I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve this CSEA as presented, the negotiations as presented. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Which was made by myself, seconded by trustee Shamas. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It passes 4-0. So now I think we are on, I got totally turned around here to item E, right? The Pacific Grove Confidential Employees Agreement.
He was removed.
E was removed. Thank you. Very quickly handled. Item F, the District Classified and Certificated Management Agreement. Again, Chief Rogaman.
This is the agreement that was struck with classified and certificated management. One of the things that you're going to notice is that the terms of these agreements are the same as what was negotiated with the employee groups. So for 24-25, the classified and certificated management, in recognition of the difficult financial situation that the district is in, is taking 0%, is taking no adjustment to salary and health and welfare. In 25-26 and 26-27, there will be a 2% increase on the salary schedules for management employees, as well as a 0.5 increase to the health and welfare cap in 25-26 and 26-27 to reflect the increase that was negotiated with the employee groups.
Thank you very much. We will now go ahead and open this item F to public comment. If not, I'll go back to the board. Any board discussion on this item? Seeing none. Looking for a motion.
I'll move that we approve the Pacific Grove Unified District Classified and Certificated Management Agreement.
I'll second.
Motion was made by trustee Schmass, seconded by clerk McNary. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? If not, it passes 4-0. So we're now to the adult education instructor group agreement. Again, Chief Rogaman.
Thank you, President Dr. Hazen. Once again, this agreement is going to reflect the terms that have been agreed to with our other employee groups. Our adult education instructor group also agreed to take a 0% compensation increase for 24-25 in recognition of the difficult financial times that the district finds itself in. In 25-26 and 26-27, there's going to be a 2% increase to the salary schedules, as well as a 0.5% increase to the health and welfare benefits for those adult education instructor group employees who take the benefits.
Excellent. Again, opening up to public comment, looking online and in the room. Going once, twice. Okay, not going back to the board. Heard the hearing on this, but we will go ahead. Can I look for a motion?
I'll move that we approve the Pacific Grove Unified School District Adult Education Instructor Group Agreement.
I'll go ahead and second that. So the motion was made by trustee Schmass, seconded by myself. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes 4-0. And I'm going to propose a quick 5-minute bio break. And with that, a suggestion that we move up the facilities master plan item since we have a presenter in person. So if folks are okay with that, we'll take a 5-minute break and come back to the FMP item. Thank you all. Be back at 8:08 on the dot. Number M, or item letter M, we're moving up just to deal with the facilities master plan because this is an important item and we have people visiting. So please go right ahead, Assistant Superintendent Jordan.
Thank you. So included in your packet is the full facilities master plan. We did bring a draft version forward to this board. There were multiple points in time we brought this process forward to the board with check-ins, and tonight we are bringing forward the final facilities master plan. As we all remember, this started with a needs assessment that was done by MGT, who was awarded that contract initially after a request for proposals. We've been working with Narissa Sparks this entire time with MGT. Tonight, she's going to highlight the entire facilities master plan for you in about a 15 to 20 minute presentation, but we really want to cover a couple of things tonight. Priority 1 projects, what are they? Health, safety, and infrastructure, campus enhancements, security, ADA upgrades, things like that. So when we're talking about priority 1 projects, that's kind of what we're talking about. Priority 2 are programmatic needs for modernization. And then priority 3 projects are long-term enhancements for learning environments. That's educational adequacy. What is the district looking at doing to advance program within our district? So we're going to kind of chop it up into 3 priority levels. That's what's highlighted in the 351-page document. And Narissa will be covering some of that tonight. And I will turn the floor over to Narissa Sparks.
All right. Thank you for having me. I'm very happy to be back here. I always love coming to Pacific Grove. Whoops. Escape. Hit the Zoom. Technical difficulties. Please hold. Share. Okay.
That's okay. I'll do it.
Okay. I've been having computer issues. All right. Well. Okay. Again, I'm Narissa Sparks. I'm a director of educational facilities solutions for MGT, and I was the project manager for this project and for the needs assessment. And I'm here to present to you the facility master plan. A little bit about my credentials. I'm an APPA certified educational facilities professional. I was formerly a maintenance director in a large urban school district in Jacksonville, Florida. And I'm a California native too. And it's always nice to come home. And I also want to take a moment to say that it has been a pleasure working with Pacific Grove. We love the people we've met. We loved working with the community. We loved exploring the facilities. And this has to be one of my all-time favorite projects. Okay, next slide. Now diving into the master plan, what you see here is a summary of the steps that we will take, that we took in building the facility master plan. Of course, you've seen this chart before in the progress report back in April, and now the plan's complete. This is not just a 10-year plan. It is also a living document that will be continuously reviewed and updated to meet the changing needs of the district. Going forward, there will be an internal facilities subcommittee and an external citizens bond oversight committee that will assist with these decisions, but we'll discuss that more later in the presentation. Next slide. On this slide, the beginning of the process, we developed the Educational Suitability Guide or Educational Adequacy Standards with the district to guide our assessments. The goal was to ensure that facilities are aligned with instructional programming. Items reviewed were learning environment, size of spaces, location of spaces, and storage and fixed equipment within those spaces. Next slide. And this is an excerpt from that suitability guide we developed. This document reflects what the district strives to be. It will also be used going forward to ensure facility equity is achieved across all campuses. We use this guide as a standard to grade schools in our educational suitability assessments. However, the expansion of programs at each site is dependent on many factors, including future enrollment. Next slide. This leads us to the enrollment projections. To gain a reasonable perspective of future enrollment, we use 4 different models to calculate projections, then calculated a weighted average of the results of all those models. Next one. This diagram shows the results of each model. The red line in the middle is the weighted average model. And as you can see, all models have a uniform downward trend. We do this because enrollment is a driving force in facilities decision. Actual enrollment trends downward. There may be need for more future adjustments to educational programs and the use of existing facilities. The next chart shows historic and projected enrollment by grade band. The grade bands are PK through 5th, 6th through 8th, 9th through 12th, and then the line on top represents the whole student population. Then we broke down we broke down historic and projected weighted averages per school. And here you see Forest Grove and Robert Down Elementary School. Next. Then we have Pacific Grove Middle and Pacific Grove High School. And we also included enrollment projections for community high school, but as you know, the enrollment at this site is dependent on many factors other than enrollment projections. So after enrollment projections, we calculate the capacity and utilization. For this, we determine the number of allowable students per room, and this figure is based on district policy, CDE requirements, and any existing collective bargaining agreements. Once determined, we will count each room in a school by type and multiply by the allowable students per room to develop a maximum capacity for the school. However, we don't want all schools at maximum capacity. We need room for adjustments and growth of not only student populations, but expansion of educational programming where needed. Therefore, we calculate the target capacity. This calculation would, the target capacity is calculated at 95% for elementary schools, 85% for middle schools, and 75% for high schools. At the high school level, no, I apologize. At the high school level, you want a little more wiggle room for adjustments in not only enrollment, but changes in space utilization. Okay. The next diagram shows the current enrollment and the next diagram, this one, shows current enrollment, maximum capacity, and target capacity. This calculation overall shows that the district is currently at 80% utilization, which is considered adequate and efficient use of space. However, it's right on that line. So we are approaching inefficient use of space as enrollment continues to decline. Now we have the facility assessments. The assessments included were building condition, educational suitability, technology readiness, and grounds conditions. We did conduct an assessment of all buildings under the Facility Needs Assessment Project that was presented back in September of last year. But as we developed the master plan, we reviewed and refined those the needs under the needs assessment and updated to remove any needs that were addressed under Measure D or planned under Measure D. We then identified and prioritized projects to address the remaining needs. This ensures that the facility master plan is both forward-looking and focused on the projects that align with the goals and funding of Measure B. Now, here you'll see the building condition assessments for each location. While Measure D did address a lot of the building envelope issues and infrastructure issues, there are still more work to be done. Some infrastructure projects yet to be completed include roofing at Pacific Grove High School and at Forest Grove, plumbing replacements, and a major HVAC project at Robert Down. These projects, along with health and safety projects, are ranked as Priority 1 and Priority 2 projects. The ranking depends, as Mr. Jordan said, the ranking depends on the type of project, the existing conditions, and the urgency and need. Once most of the urgent Priority 1 and Priority 2 projects are completed, we then move to the remaining Priority 2 and the Priority 3 projects, such as interior finishes, energy improvements, and program space alterations, such as CTA expansion would be an example of that. Next, we have the educational suitability scores for each of the schools. This generally reflects a need for functionality improvements within the educational spaces. And the educational suitability projects included Priority 1 improvements to address ADA issues, health and safety conditions, and they also reflect Priority 2 and Priority 3 improvements to educational programming, as mentioned, interior environments, and both indoor and outdoor flexible spaces, such as outdoor classrooms. Okay. Next, we have the technology assessments, and as you can see, the scores were pretty high across the board. Technology readiness is a rating of the infrastructure within the facility and its ability to support the 21st century technology. As you can see, all campuses scored well in this category. District-wide, the greatest need for technology readiness is upgrade to electrical infrastructure to better support 21st century technology. Second was improving connectivity and expanding the use of energy management systems, such as HVAC controls and occupancy sensors. And these will improve operational efficiency. While you see lighting and fire alarm and HVAC also reflected in the building condition assessments, technology readiness focuses on how these systems connect and communicate. It's all about ensuring the infrastructure is not only present, but integrated and ready for future use. Okay, next. The grounds condition scores. As you can see, these were mixed scores across the board. Significant highlights include ADA path of travel improvements, especially around Pacific Grove High School. Specifically, there is a need for an ADA access from the main campus down to the stadium. That's one of the Priority 1 projects. There's also a need for drainage improvements, playground, and asphalt play court replacements, and Priority 3 improvements to beautify campuses district-wide. This chart shows all the scores for each location and the combined averages per school. As you'll see here, the average combined scores are fairly equal across all the main school campuses. You know, and as a facility planner, this would imply to me historically that funding has been spent, especially recent funding like under Measure D, funding has been spread across all campuses somewhat equally to date. That's what it would imply to me. Okay, next. Next, we're going to take a moment to explain our cost estimates. Our cost estimating methodology includes sources like RS Means, local vendors, and online research for specific items such as wheelchair lifts. These direct construction costs are referred to as hard costs. In addition to hard costs, there are costs related to each project known as soft costs. The soft costs include design and engineering fees, permits, regulatory fees such as Division of State Architect fees, also known as DSA fees, project management costs, and FFE, which is furniture, fixtures, and equipment that falls outside of the construction design. Since this is a 10-year plan, we've also included estimates for the first 3 years of cost escalation. Historically, this has been estimated around 3%, but since COVID, we've seen huge variations in construction cost escalation, as high as 14% annually in California. So for purposes of this plan, we calculated the escalation increases at around 5%, just to estimate or overestimate for future uncertainty. So going on to the plans for each site. At our last presentation for the needs assessment, we discussed the needs. Now we're talking about what we're going to do forward moving. Forest Grove major projects include modernization of classrooms, the NPR, the administration, and the media center. Now, the term modernization in this report refers to upgrading interior finishes, such as flooring, painting, casework, and it also includes technology improvements, such as audio and technology infrastructure, electrical updates, and equipment needed to meet the specific use of that space. One example of that would be, equipment for the culinary CTE spaces. But back to Forest Grove, there's also a need for several site improvements, which include asphalt replacement on the playground and drainage around the kinderyard. The estimated hard cost for this location was $9.2 million. This cost does not include the soft costs we discussed earlier, nor does it include the escalation, but all those figures can be found in Appendix A of the report. At Robert Down, projects included interior modernization and adding flexible learning spaces such as a STEM lab, many site improvements, including asphalt replacement and repairs, continuing the ongoing plumbing replacements, and Priority 1 ADA and safety improvements. The plan also includes the construction of a new TK wing, but that's only as long as future enrollment continues to reflect the need. The estimated hard costs for this are just under $13 million. Next, we have Pacific Grove Middle School. And the middle school requires interior modernization, as we saw before, of the classrooms, media center, auditorium, and the shop building. The shop building has already been partially modernized to create a STEM lab, but the other half is due for interior improvements and window replacement, which would improve not only energy efficiency, but natural lighting into those spaces, since they're mostly used for art rooms. Additionally, there are Priority 3 recommendations for expanding high school CTE programs to the middle school level, as long as that aligns with the decisions made or future decisions made by the facility subcommittee and the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee. And Pacific Grove High School has many of the same interior modernization needs as the middle school, especially where CTE programs may be expanded. The plan calls for more purpose-built spaces with the infrastructure to support modern technology and the use of modern equipment. Additionally, at the high school, there's a lot of potential for flexible use of outdoor spaces. They've got all that outdoor space, a lot of it. This includes construction of outdoor classrooms and common areas within these areas that would include seating and shade structures for students to not only learn but meet. Again, after the completion of Priority 1 and immediate need Priority 2 projects, these Priority 3 decisions will be reviewed and refined by the two supporting internal and external committees. And we have the hard costs at an estimated $23 million. The Pacific Grove Adult Education, this was my favorite spot. I love this space. The campus is a wonderful cornerstone of the district and the community. And as you know, the campus offers a variety of programs for community members, such as preschool co-op, parenting, adult transition, adult education, and adult and elder wellness programs. However, this campus has a lot of potential to offer the district. This is an excellent example of how the facility master plan is a dynamic living document. There was a recent loading study that had been completed for this site, and as the district considers consolidating programs, the plan will change and adapt. An example of this change and adaptation would be the relocation of the community high school from the David Avenue campus. These are decisions that will drive future modernization or construction plans for this facility. So this plan remains dynamic. Next is David Avenue. The plans for this location are also dynamic. After the potential movement of community high school and the state preschool to the adult education campus, this facility would become fully leased to Monterey Bay Charter School. However, with that lease, there are contracted improvements to the infrastructure that will need to occur to keep the buildings in good condition. And this will also ensure that this facility continues to be a valuable asset in the district's portfolio. And lastly, I'm going to quickly go over community engagement sessions that we conducted back in March. These sessions played a role in developing the facility master plan, and I'll go over this briefly. The first session was a staff session. The overall perception at this session was of facilities was good. Top two planning objectives were building condition and safety security. Top items mentioned were reliable heating, sealing the building envelope to prevent water intrusion, and secure lock buildings. Lastly, the majority agreed with combining both long-term investments and short-term solutions to address urgent needs as a sound plan to move forward. The strategy is reflected in the plan by organizing all the projects into those three priority categories that we spoke of. Next was the first community session, a day session. The perception of facilities was rated both equally and fair. 40% of respondents responded good and fair. The top planning objectives were building condition, improved use of space. The top improvements were watertight building envelope, reliable heating, CTE programs, and on-site athletic facilities. And the majority again agreed with combining long and short-term investment. Next was the third community session, the evening session. The overall perception was good. Top objectives again were building condition and equitable facilities district-wide at this session. The top items were building envelope, heating, and secure lock buildings. And again, the majority agreed with the short and long-term investment strategy. And one more. We also conducted an online survey for those who could not attend the live session. We had a pretty good turnout. This survey reflected much of the same results, with overall perception being between good and fair. The top objectives were building conditions, safety and security, and extracurricular activities. The top issues were, again, building envelope, heating, secure lock buildings, and the majority agreed with the short and long-term investment strategies. And the overall perception of each of these groups also reflects the between good and fair condition of the buildings that we saw in the building condition scores. All right. Now for the next steps for Pacific Grove. It's time to start executing the plan. This first involves contracting an architect of record and a construction management firm, then design and DSA approval for priority 1 and the most urgent priority 2 projects will take place. These include fire and life safety, ADA, roofing, drainage, and infrastructure projects. During this process, the district will form those 2 committees, an internal facilities subcommittee and an external citizens bond oversight committee. The facilities subcommittee will guide any programmatic changes, and the bond oversight committee will maintain financial oversight. This will be a new group completely committed to Measure B, and the district will be seeking new members for the committee, and they will begin meeting in spring of 2026. And they asked me to mention that nominations are encouraged. So get out there and nominate people. And thank you. If anyone has any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you so much for the presentation. And as we tend to do, even if I forget, we should go first to public comment. So see if there's anyone in the room or online. With more pause. If not, I will go to our board. Go right ahead. Yeah, jump in, Trustee Wax. And
Hi, thanks so much for the information.
Mhm.
So the projection of enrollment in PGUSD is supposed to go from 1710 this year to 1523 in 2031, but we're supposed to get 891 additional units because of the city's RENA. So no more, like, how does that factor into projections? No more kids will come in those almost 900 units?
You're speaking of new units, housing units?
Yeah.
Correct? We take, you know, when we look at these models, we're also looking at planning commission and other items. See, with enrollment projections, we're projecting out 10 years. But the thing is that when you project out for the first 3 years, we can kind of pretty accurately detect where it will go. There's also other factors too driving this, but when you get to that 5 to 10 year, you know, as you go out further, other things could change. Like we saw COVID happen, and we saw, you know, there's a lot of different changes could happen. But we're also taking into consideration that across the country, birth rates are lower. There's a lot of different driving factors. Are these apartment units?
They're like ADUs, houses, apartments, everything.
Okay.
Low income.
Historically that apartments, across the country generally don't have as many students come out of them as you would think. It's a lot of times it's younger couples or older couples, whereas, we tend to see families more in houses. But to this specific project, I would have to defer to Mr. Jordan.
Yeah, I think you hit on those points really well. And I think that in looking at this district as like the ADU expansion has evolved, you hit on that point perfectly, which is we're not realizing the number of K through 12, TK through 12 population of students that are moving into this community. That's just not what we're seeing. And unfortunately, it tends to be at the much lower grade level. So I think when they're doing the projection enrollment or the enrollment projections, just like I do every single year when I bring them to this board, what we're factoring in is, kind of a tailing off of the lower grade levels, right? Well, the influx of new housing can bring in new students. It's just not indicative of those lower grade levels that would stay with our district from TK through 12. We also have a transient population that we evaluate when looking at our enrollment projections. We have high level of military NPS and DLI here. So we do see students moving in and moving out kind of on a 2-year cycle. So you have to take that into consideration as well. So with new housing, there is some potential for new school age students, but with the transient nature of a lot of our population of students, the move in and move out has been something that has kept us low. Specifically over the course of the last 3 years, the district has went from nearly 1,800 students down to a projection of about 1,701 next year. So with that projection being, tailing off significantly, I'm not certain that the influx of new housing is going to increase the numbers significantly. It might keep us flat, or it might keep us from falling all the way down in those projections as you presented. It might stabilize. It might stabilize the dip, but I don't think it's going to cause us to level and go back up.
And I'd like to add, with being at 80%, utilization right now, you do have room to absorb what would come out of the 900 units. And also, this is a living document, a very dynamic plan. And if it did have a strong effect, then the facility subcommittee could discuss those changes. But again, you're at 80%, so you're in a good range to actually absorb and still not be overutilized.
Okay, and then I guess speaking to the not final aspect, what is the time frame when these do become final? What's that?
Just gonna say, I think they never do, right? I mean, that's the whole point of an FMP, is for it to be a living document.
Yeah, so it's a living document.
Yeah.
And so the initial steps right now for our district, if I'm answering that question, is related to beginning the development and programming of priority 1 and some priority 2 projects. So items that we need to address to become compliant. So that's going to start right away. The subcommittee that Narissa references, is going to evaluate the educational adequacy of our facilities as we progress through time and through this facilities master plan. So, this is a 10-year plan that is constantly moving, and we're bringing forward a couple of contracts for construction management and architect of record, which is a 3-year contract for each one of them this year, with the understanding that by year 3, if we've checked off a lot of those priority 1 and some priority 2 projects, we now have a better understanding of, number 1, what is our enrollment doing by year 2 or year 3? Number 2, what are we doing as it relates to expansion of program? Are we going to shift our focus, or are we going to stay the course with our CTE programs right now? So that is something that's going to evolve over time. But using a facilities master plan as a living document is what really helps us with kind of getting started at evaluating our district and what the facilities are going to provide for our students 10 years from now.
Yes, it definitely serves as a guideline, kind of an outline. When when you're in college and you're writing your report, you start with your outline and then you fill in the spaces. And this is the outline and the direction for 10 years. And filling in the spaces will come as things change and evolve within the district.
Yeah, please.
This is an outline, and because there's a lot of things in here that are recommended that I don't even agree with, so I wouldn't even be for that. And I really feel that the board needs to have a separate meeting just on this to be in sync because there's things that are mentioned in here that, you know, we need to talk about. And some of the things I'm surprised kind of weren't flagged, but I was glad to see the ADA flagged because we've been needing that. But then when they mention the ADA, they don't even mention the ADA needing to be put in at the baseball field. I mean, that's been
Yeah,
one
that
of
should
my sticklers for a long time.
That was mentioned.
No, it was, they said the stadium, not the baseball field.
Oh, I see. I thought it was
And-
along the way. In the full
Because-
document, I think it was both.
It's the baseball stadium.
Yeah. That ramp.
Yeah, yeah, that's scary.
I may, you know, when we wrote this, I may have called it stadium, not separating it from baseball field or not, and I apologize for that.
Yeah, 'cause, I mean, because when we did the stadium, we have access. Also drainage. Drainage is a huge issue for us.
Yes.
And you know, the library at the high school. My God, you know, and Robert Downs drainage issues. These are constant, I mean,
Yeah.
they've been with us for 50 years. You know, I mean, I don't know how we solve some of that because of the geography of our area, because we have these underground rivers. And, but they are costly because they create mold, they create all kinds of issues for us.
Yeah, I did personally walk that lower floor of the library and I
Yeah.
did see the issues
Yeah.
and kind of stood there and looked at it like, how would you solve this?
Yeah.
You know, because
Boarded
it's
up.
in the center of the campus. There's no real room to go and dig drainage anywhere, plus your water table. So, you know, of course, that would take a civil engineer to figure out. But yeah, I did, you know, that both those items are in the plan, the drainage at Forest Grove as well. So.
Yeah. Then the other thing at the high school, the couple of wings, I forget which ones they are, K and L, that are flagged for flooring, ceiling. I mean, I would say they just need to be demolished and rebuilt. Really. I mean, and I would want us to have that as a possibility because, you know, it's something that people think, oh, we can never do that, you know, whatever. But when we did our first bond measure here and, you know, we built the field house, we built the small gym, the dance thing, you know, and so there's times when people think that that can't be done. But I would just put it out there that let's look at that because what's the cost of fixing all that up? I mean, and the other thing too is that, you know, we really should walk these places. We need, as a board, need to just physically walk these sites to get a good sense of, you know, what's really dilapidated and what's, you know, salvageable. I don't share your interest in Lighthouse School. I think that place is seen its day. I mean,
But it's a huge site.
it's a huge site. The site is okay.
Yeah.
But the buildings there, I mean, the old school, I mean, I went to kindergarten there, okay? Like it's,
But you're like
That's-
20.
yeah, I know, I forgot, but
Well, I know
it's old. It's old.
I know with K and L, I know exactly what you're talking about, but that's when you bring in the architect of record, and that architect could determine the value of whether remodel or tear down and replace would be the more economical value. You know, this is a guide, something needs to be done with that building. We mentioned what's wrong with it, we mentioned what needs to be done with it. But there's that option of tear down and replace, which I think we also presented for the adult school.
All right.
Yeah, I go next. Actually, no, I'm gonna go next because I'm in, and then I'll go to you, Clerk McNary, after that. I just, you know, following on that, I mean, wanted to ask one thing about the priorities. So you had 1 and 2 obviously as first and then 3 coming later. But is there an opportunity to take on some of these earlier based on construction opportunities? I just know sometimes construction timing is very difficult to make. So could priority 3 be addressed sooner than waiting for 1 and 2 to be complete?
I mean, it certainly can, and that's related to, as I mentioned, primarily to educational adequacy. So can I give an example? Clearly this district has a very strong culinary program, right? That is probably tied into a priority 3 project. Yes, it could be a 2, which is simply the modernization of existing facilities. That would be kind of a level 2 project. We would need to look at a level 3 project if we're looking at expanding that program. Right. So that would be a consideration I would think that our subcommittee will explore. Do we simply modernize or do we expand the program? It's just one example.
Right. Well, tying that, part of what I was really excited about that is you're tying that this process. So that's what's going to come from the internal team. The other one though, too, is just a question is, it seems like so many of the priority items should fall under our previous Measure D bond than our Measure B. So that's the other thing about this FMP is this isn't just addressing the new bond. It's starting from where we're at with still at least one more, or we just approved another release of Measure D, right?
So as it relates to Measure D, that's right. We do have one more series release we're going to release this fall that is planned in our budget. And that final series release, which also coincides with summer projects this summer, should bring us to the end of Measure D. And yes, some of the projects that were identified as priority 1 projects on this list may be paid for out of Measure D, correct? But we also want to identify them because they were identified in the needs assessment for the district.
Agreed. And part of the reason I bring that up is I'm just not worried, but again, I want us to be true to the goal of the bond. So much of what we looked at, because it's a need of the district, is like fixing, big, small to big Band-Aids. And we need to be thinking about the next step of the modernizing, what should the future look like, tearing down, rebuilding. What do we want in 2030 for our district? So I'm glad to hear that. And so I think also the next answer, this will also come probably from the committee, but like I saw the demolishing, the temporary classrooms at multiple sites, the nursing annex from PG Adult Ed. So right now, there aren't yet plans to how to replace that, right? That's something that would come from the internal group, or do we have thoughts on that?
So then if we're just talking specifically about the nursing.
Yeah, use that as
exactly. At the adult school. That was identified as a Measure D project that is going to be demolished this year. We've went through the entire process of DSA review, relocating of utilities. The process has already started to remove that building. And then to answer the second part of the question, initially through Measure D, the intent for that space was to expand preschool programming. That was the initial intent of that space. Will Measure D funds provide us with enough dollars to do that? The answer is possibly. Right. It depends on the economies of scale associated with the rest of the Measure D projects, but that was part of Measure D. It could roll over into Measure B should we or the committee determine that we're not going to look at expansion of preschool. Maybe we're going to look at something else in that space. That would come out of the committee. But right now, that one in particular was tied to Measure D.
I think that's a perfect example of how things evolve, over time. Really, that was sort of a plan a few years back. And now with our creation of the, pre-kindergarten UPK class at Forest Grove, the goal really there is to really build our, early education center and have it, located in an elementary site. And then that gives us something new to envision for the adult school. We're talking now about the community high school and relocating that, to a new area that would be constructed at the adult school. So great example.
Yeah, and then the follow-up of that it comes back to one of our consent items that we were discussing is the lease with the David Avenue School. If we're opening more areas for them to use, I assume that would be a perfect time to consider renegotiating the lease or discussing what that should be. Because I know right now it's by square footage, but if it's modernized equipment and we put $5 million into the site, that probably would require some thought on a new lease, right?
It would. Unfortunately, for us, the building that we are currently housed in for community high school and the preschool did have some modernization done previously under Measure D, as opposed to the rest of the campus. So there, fortunately, some of that work has been done already on that building, that they are interested in expanding their school site and taking over that facility if we do move completely off of the David Avenue campus. But you're correct. It's about what investment the district's going to make into that infrastructure at that school site, and then the cost benefit analysis associated with that. How much do we put in versus what we what we get out, but we do have a very successful charter school program there that plans to be in that facility for some time. But yes, it would lend to the renegotiation of a lease.
And hopefully expansion, yeah. And so the other point, just following on your point, Beth, about visiting the various camp. I mean, we did that last summer, I feel like under Measure D, to look at the improvements, look what we still needed. I think that's a great thing for us to target this summer, just to be able to see where it's at and how it aligns with FMP. But, the other thing, and this comes to your repair or replace, is, the thing that the FMP, and it's no fault of your own, but doesn't provide is that creativity. Like the term modernize just doesn't get me excited. I want to see what that looks like. What does a modernize, if you have an architecture drawing and all that. So that's what's to come. But I'll just again kind of throw my thought out that really I want that, Measure B was passed with that idea of creativity in mind. The outdoor classroom ideas, that's a great example actually of where that was perfectly in there with the commenting areas. So I assume again, no mock-ups have been done yet because we're not at that stage yet, but that's something we can look forward to. And again, just thinking about these, not just the Band-Aids, but which again, I know is what we're doing, but really excited to think about what the future will look like.
Thank you for the presentation. I learned a lot about our campuses and their various conditions. I think for purposes of today and for purposes of approving this plan, I've heard over and over reiterated that it's a living document and that there's flexibility in the plan. And I think that's kind of what we're needing to hear, that, if we make a decision to approve this plan today, does that include all the cool ideas we might have for the district? Or if something should come up, like we find out we need to fix the chairlift or some elevators for ADA compliance, or there's a really cool skate park activity that could be something for extracurricular that we could develop some ways down the road. Like if members of the community or members of the board are interested in participating, I mean, is there an option for that? Like where do those ideas or where does that information come in?
Well, yeah, again, with the subcommittee,
Okay.
that those ideas would be brought to those committees and then evaluated. And with the architect, then our architect of record that could basically, trying to figure out how to explain this. When I say modernize, it's a guide, but something needs to be done to this classroom or this space to make it up to 21st century standards. What that looks like exactly is going to be the architect's drawing, and then the actual costs is going to come out of that too. This is a guide in that direction, but yes, there is room for changes. And also with California Prop 2, they recommend that the plan is updated every 5 years. Okay. So we'll go through and complete 5 years worth of projects, whether they're the ones prescribed or any of those dynamic changes, but then we revisit it and go back and, update it with the things that have been done and the new direction that the district and the board would like to go. So a 5-year update, even though it's a 10-year plan, California is recommending that facility master plans are updated every 5 years.
And that's to meet the matching funds.
Yes,
Prop 2.
to meet the Prop 2 matching funds, but it's also a good practice.
Right.
Okay.
Wait.
Was there something?
No, go.
No, I appreciate the focus on facility equity. And I think just this is like 2.5 years on the board, I'm really pleased to see we're at the step where we're all focused on planning and long-term planning and what the district's going to look like for the future. So that's my 2 cents. And I definitely would like to visit the campuses, and that sounds like a great idea. Yeah. Thank you for your time and your work on this.
No, thank you for allowing me to enter your district. I've actually really enjoyed this project. This has been very enjoyable. You have beautiful facilities. I do love that adult education space, but yes, it is dated, but that campus has wonderful potential.
Yeah.
So with the approval of this FMP, that is an agreement to the AOR or the architect of record.
No, so what you're doing, what the board's doing tonight, if they so desire to approve, is they're approving the facilities master plan as it's currently draft as a final document that we can first and foremost submit to the state of California for Prop 2 matching funds. So any projects that the district plans to pursue moving forward, many of the, if not all of the priority 1 and priority 2 projects would allow us to harness modernization dollars through the SB 50 program at the state level. So that's like one of the most important components here is number one, we have this fluid plan that is a guiding document for the district that we can now submit to California Department of Education and the Office of Public School Construction that says district has a plan. It's a fluid plan. They are fully aware that these plans, they do change. They're fluid over time. But first and foremost, it allows us to start applying for state funding to match the funding on any of these projects. So we can stretch that $78 million bond. We can double that hopefully, because there is a need. The needs assessment showed that there was a higher need than we had in Measure B, but we plan to meet that need with utilization of state funds.
So one other just question again, if the board is in agreement, I would love to ask the district, maybe even preceding the architectural drawings to get some ideas like photos from other districts that have been creative on this, because I think it would help me to see what modernization could look like, if that makes sense. And I know that's probably to come, but it might not hurt just to start, I don't know, at least peppering me with some ideas. Everyone else agrees. Yeah, just start seeing.
Yeah, I think we talked about this a little bit before, but I would like ideas of what innovative projects that districts have done with their existing sites and how they've either rehabilitated them or torn them down, what have you.
Okay, that's great. So I think with that, it might be a good time for a motion on this, which I will go ahead and make that motion to approve the FMP, moving towards Prop 2. And I get a second?
I'll second.
Okay, motion is made by myself, seconded by Trustee Wax. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? If not, it passes 4-0. So that was item M, and we're going to go back now. Thank you so much again for the presentation.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Back to item H, which is the board certified behavior analyst job description with Chief Rokeman.
Thank you, President. Dr. Hazen. This is a job description for a board certified behavior analyst. This is a position that the district currently contracts with an outside company to provide for the district. The BCBA will do things like a functional behavior analysis for students who are on IEPs, and then also guide staff in addressing the behaviors and coming up with strategies that will help students be successful when there are behavior challenges that they are faced with. The funding for this position is going to be done by supplanting the contract. So we have a contract with an outside agency. Rather than contract with that outside agency, we would like to hire an in-house BCBA, and what we are trying to do is make sure we have a job description for every position that we look to hire in the district. And so that's the reason why we look at this BCBA job description that you have before you.
Right.
The job description itself actually doesn't have a fiscal impact, but the fiscal impact that's listed below is if the district were to hire one.
Okay, great. We'll open up to public comment. And while I'm waiting for public comment, I'll make just 2 quick comments on that. Again, reminder, this does not apply to the general fund, correct? This is to Resource 6500.
I'll defer to Assistant Superintendent Jordan on that.
Feel free to, okay, yeah, go ahead.
Do you want me to?
Maybe think it, hold it, and then we'll come. Yeah, no, but we'll come back to it at the board discussion. I just want to mention it because it looks like we have someone from the public. So please come right ahead.
I just noticed in, sorry, Erica Chavez, that in the experience listed in the job description, it says experience with K-12 students. And if we're expanding our early education and early elementary programs, I think that it would behoove the person, if that's all of their experience, to receive some training for PK and TK if necessary.
My comment. Anyone else from the public? And then I'll get back to board comments that I cheated ahead with. Okay. If not, yeah, so I'll go ahead and start with that one question, then I'll go to my next. So yeah, please go right ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, so Resource 6500 is a resource that comes from the general fund. So special education is subsidized through the general fund. It is a general fund contribution. But what we're talking about tonight is supplanting funds that were tied through Resource 6500 with contract services. That is correct. So it provides us with staff in the district to meet the needs of our student population. More importantly, it brings them into our district as a part of our community as opposed to an external entity that kind of comes and goes. And we also, over the course of the years, have had different folks doing this job. It gives us more stability in that area, but it's supplanting.
Right. And just to be clear, as a reminder, this is again also getting us from that 2 mental health therapists to 3 when we mentioned that. That's part of what this position would help support, right? Or no, totally separate. Okay.
It is. Yeah, so the funding is similar, right? That we are taking contracts that we have with an outside entity and using that to fund our in-house personnel. So that's similar, but they're different positions.
Thank you. Okay, I'll move to others. Sorry, I jumped ahead. I need to stop apologizing.
So this is like you could have a regular teacher who's also able to meet these qualifications and on assignment can perform these duties.
This is a specialist that we'd be looking to hire. So when a child has behavioral needs, sometimes what is called for is what's called a functional behavior analysis. So what you're trying to look for are what is the function of the behavior that the student is exhibiting, and the BCBA will observe the student and then help come up with the analysis of why a student is behaving the way that they are, and then come up with strategies that can help the student be more successful in the classroom.
I guess what I'm getting at is that this person is not performing these job duties all week. This is something that is kind of on call as needed.
That's the way that we've worked the contract. But what we've discovered in the district is that what is a greater need than it has been in the past is the behaviors that we're seeing in the classroom. And so in order to help our educational specialists address the behavioral needs that we have, this person will be an expert that can help staff understand the behaviors that they're seeing in the classroom and provide suggestions for strategies. Also, there are certain documents within an IEP that the BCBA can help in the creation of. So the psychologist is the actual person that does like an escalation cycle management plan, but the BCBA would make the contributions toward the escalation cycle management plans and the behavior intervention plans that are part of a student's IEP.
So it's a full-time employment then?
Correct.
Not seeing any other hands. Any motions like to be made?
I'll make a motion to approve the job description as presented.
I second the motion, although I do like the note about adding the TK.
Thank you for, so friendly amendment being suggested to add TK. I'll
fine.
go ahead and second that friendly amendment and UPK. So TK and UPK, please. All in favor of that with the friendly amendments, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? So is that clear enough? Sorry.
Yes, it is.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Editing on the fly. On to item I, Chief Rogenman.
Here we are putting forth an education specialist teacher job description. You may recall that in a previous meeting, we brought a very similar job description forward, only it was an itinerant education specialist teacher job description. This is a job description that would apply for the teachers who are serving in this function who are not itinerant, meaning that they're based at a single site. And that really is the only distinction between this job description and the one that was approved at a previous meeting. Once again, the reason why we're bringing this forward is we have the opportunity to hire, a couple of ed specialists in the district, and we want to make sure that we have a job description available for those education specialists that we're looking to hire.
We go back to our familiar and very important public. Anyone from the public like to make a comment?
Is it the same?
Okay, same comment.
Sorry, Eric.
Made again.
Saved you.
Yes.
A
Okay.
couple steps.
With that, going back to the board. Any discussion on this item? No, I will go ahead and make a motion to approve with the friendly amendment of UPK and TK inclusion. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Okay, motion made by myself, seconded by trustee Wax. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, passes 4-0. Now on to item J, the LCAP, and Chief Ogerman gets to sit down.
That'll be next. Good evening, trustees. Larry Hagquist, Executive Director of Educational Services. And I'm very excited to request that the board approve the LCAP. This is an item that was brought for public hearing at the May 20th. Thank you. Public hearing at the May 22nd board meeting, May 15th board meeting, and the April 22nd board meeting. We had a LCAP board study session. It was also informed by the mid-year LCAP review, February 27th. It has, since the public hearing, been presented to MCOE with very strong positive response. And we are here tonight to just request that we approve the LCAP for the 2025-26 school year.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the history because it has been something on our minds a lot. With that, public comment, anyone online or in the room? Not, I'll go back to the board. I feel very well versed on the LCAP now, which is exactly the way we should be. So would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll move that we accept the LCAP for 2025-26.
Okay, I will go ahead and second that. Motion made by trustee Shamas, seconded by myself. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And I'll just thank again the district and the team of everyone that was involved with this. So thank you. Now to the local performance indicators.
All right. Again, Larry Hagquist presenting the local performance indicators for 2024-25 school year. I'm going to be requesting that the board approve this item so that it can be posted to the accountability dashboard along with the state indicators. A little bit of background on this item. Yeah. It is. It's a local indicators. It's got it. Okay. Slide number 2. Right here, this is a slide that should look familiar to you. This is a list of the 8 state priorities. Every LEA's LCAP needs to address the 8 state priorities. But on this slide, you'll see that I've highlighted 5 of the 8 state priorities. What I've highlighted are the 5 local indicators. The other indicators are state priorities. So you'll see 4, 5, and 8. Pupil achievement, pupil engagement, and other pupil outcomes are addressed through state priorities that are already apparent on the state dashboard. It's things like state assessment results, graduation rates, LPAC results, things like that. The purpose of the local indicators is so that we truly do have a local control accountability plan. Many of these indicators that I'm presenting here tonight, I've already presented as part of the mid-year, as part of the board study session. I have been presenting the state indicators as well as the local indicators. And this is just our own accountability system. So you should be familiar with some of these metrics. Priority 1 is basic services, and this is just to ensure that we have adequate facilities, which you just heard about. We have teachers that are appropriately assigned, and that we have curricular materials that are there for the kids. And our report this year, these are all things that have been shared with the board already in various ways. These items were shared through the school accountability report cards. Item number 1 addresses things like misassignments, credentials out of field in the district, or teachers that are still completing credentials. These numbers are low compared to state averages. And just for a little bit of context, I myself have been in the district for over 20 years. I've had several different positions as a teacher, and Ms. Shamas might know that when I was first hired as a teacher, I was hired as a math and English teacher. My credential was in English. I've taught psychology. I've taught leadership, a lot of different classes. And I think on 2 separate occasions, my assignment was out of wouldn't have been fully credentialed for those. Number of students without access to their own copies of standards aligned text and materials, 0. I present on this in the fall. This is the sufficiency of instructional materials presentation that you will hear once again in the fall. It's when we have to look at that. And then a number of identified instances where facilities do not meet good repair. This was also contained in the school accountability report cards. It was part of Director Anderson's FIT test, facilities inspection tool. And these are just the instances that came up where facilities were not in good repair. It should be of note that we had 0 instances of extreme deficiencies. So things that are going to be addressed in the facilities master plan are things like these 30 instances where we have some deficiencies that need to be addressed. Priority number 2 is implementation of state academic standards. And this is just about what are we doing to ensure that the teachers in their classrooms are continuing to address state academic standards? What kind of professional development are we offering? And how are we ensuring that those standards are continuing to be reflected upon? An example from this year, we had a solution tree professional learning communities training for the entire district staff. And one of the things that we do as part of professional learning communities, the very first question that we ask is, what do we want students to know? And that really addresses the issue of state standards. How do we know what we want students to know? And then there are further questions that we work on in our professional learning communities. Also, when we adopt texts, we want to make sure that their standards aligned. You've heard from me about some adoptions this year, and one of the things that we cover in those adoptions is to ensure that they're aligned with California state standards. Priority 3 is parental involvement. Again, this is all stuff that we've addressed throughout the year. You're going to recognize the picture on this slide. This is the timeline of engagement meetings. I think if we go back right there, this is the timeline of engagement meetings. And so in the report that you see in the board packet, it goes into much more detail about what we have to do when we go through this reflection on the local indicators. These are the questions. Really, it really just asks us to numerically kind of assess where we are with respect to the items indicated by the prompts. Things like building relationships between schools, staff, and families, building partnerships for student outcomes, and seeking input for decision making. Priority 6, this is school climate. I put a picture of the California Healthy Kids Survey because we've done a lot of work in assessing where we are with school climate. And so the reflection prompts asked us to review the local climate survey data, to describe learning based on an analysis of the data, and discuss any changes to the plans and policies in order to address the needs identified. If you recall, I put together a board study report that goes into much further detail about how we reviewed this local climate data and the many different instruments that we used to conduct the evaluation and arrive at the suggested changes in plans. Some of the things that I'm just highlighting from that report that we need to keep doing are working on improving communication. You've heard a little bit about that tonight. We're constantly doing things like that, even efforts like changing the district website. It's with the thought of improving communication. Continue to strengthen PLCs with the focus on alignment of standards. We just talked about that. This is work that we will continue to do at all of our sites. And then continue with goal 4 of our LCAP, and that's cultural proficiency. And you've heard a lot about the work that we're doing and the just important work that we do with regard to that. And finally, access to courses. This is access to a broad course of study. If there's one thing we all know about this tiny little district that we have, is that we offer an extremely broad course of study to our students, especially considering the size of our community. And there are several prompts that it asks us to reflect on. And when we think about some of the ways that we can to growth areas for providing access for a broad course of study, the thing that jumps to mind immediately is one of our growth areas, that is attendance. If students aren't attending school, they're not accessing that broad course of study. So that's one of the things that I highlighted here. And then finally, I just wanted to highlight with a quote that addresses what we're all about, and that's the culture of we. Coming together is a beginning, keeping together is progress, and working together is success. And I think that these local indicators and the LCAP for this year is really just a reflection of our best effort to work together as a community.
Thank you so much for the presentation, and we will go out to public comment. If there's anyone in the room or online. None. I will come back to the board.
Well, just on that note of you teaching out of class, so to speak, just remember, of course, we approved your ability to teach those courses, which is what we do, because like you said, we are teaching many different classes, and so without expanding our teaching staff, we're looking to bring in, teachers that we could use, and you were one of them. So I think you should get a degree in psychology. You did good in that. And on the other thing I think is just so I'm so proud of this district is when you talk about the standards. Like, we're so good at that. I think we are so good at adhering to state standards and using that as our we're so serious about it. Mm-hmm. And I applaud you and all of the teachers and staff that make that happen, because that's what I see in this district, is like that kind of dedication to not just getting by or not just meeting something, but truly getting those standards, ingrained from all levels. And that's how you see success at the end of high school. So congratulations.
I'll just add again another thank you. I think this is tracking us towards success, so I really appreciate it. But otherwise, I look for a motion on approving the local performance indicators.
I'll make a motion to approve the local performance indicators.
Can I get a second?
I will second the motion.
Okay, motion made by trustee Wax and seconded by clerk McNary. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? If not, motion passes 4-0. So we're on to item L, services. The school resource officer.
Well, yes, it is my pleasure to bring forward for the board's consideration tonight a revised contract for the continued services of our school resource officer. I just want to, before showing you a video from our new chief of police, I want to just mention how grateful we are and I am to the city of Pacific Grove, particularly our PG police department, and in particular our new chief of police, Chief Casey Day. I don't know if you've all had a chance to meet him. Well, he was here at our last meeting, and unfortunately we weren't able to have him based on just because of time constraints. He was unable to be here this evening, and he'll give the reason when he shares the video. It's a good reason, but he wanted to still be able to share his message in person, so that hence the video. I really just I think we've really been able to work very closely with with the city and with PGPD over the last few weeks. It's been really refreshing to hear from Chief Day directly about his philosophy and his approach to the school resource officer program. He is in fact a former school resource officer himself, and in former positions has been heavily and directly involved in the building of the program itself. So it's something that speaks is very dear and near to his heart. But I think in particular what has stood out in our conversations, and you'll hear it a little from him now, is has really been very much open to the district's desire and the district's needs, and really being able to work with us and wants to be able to collaborate, on our need and request for, more data collection, and, really making sure that that they're making the position work, for us as a district. So I think that's been refreshing. But I'm not going to say any more because I really would like for you to hear directly from him, and we're going to go ahead and share the video.
Good evening, everyone. Chief Day, Pacific Grove Police Department. I want to start off by thanking you all for allowing me a moment of your time this evening. I want to actually apologize for not being with you in person this evening. I'm currently away celebrating a pretty big milestone for my family. We actually just welcomed our first granddaughter, so I appreciate your understanding as I spend this meaningful time with them. That said, I also didn't want to miss the opportunity to speak about something critically important: our ongoing partnership with the school district and the continuation of the school resource officer program. Let me briefly share 4 key reasons why this program remains a vital investment in our schools and community. First is the cost. There will be no recommended increases in cost for the next contract term. We understand the fiscal responsibilities you manage, and we're committed to maintaining this program at a stable cost to the district. Second is the ongoing request for data and accountability. Moving forward, the police department will leverage technology to deliver tangible data. We will provide biannual reports in March and November, covering campus patrols, student and staff contacts, including mentoring and conflict resolution, referrals or reportable incidences, presentations, school event attendance, parent and staff follow-ups, calls for service, investigations, and time spent on various activities. This level of transparency helps build trust and shows clear return on public investment. Third is the educational role. I want to acknowledge that the decision to remove the DARE program was made by this board, and we respect that. As you consider replacement programs, I encourage you to lead with options that meet today's student needs, such as Project Alert or life skills curriculums. The police department's role is to support and reinforce that curriculum, not to dictate it. Fourth is trust and vetting. Assigning a sworn police officer as a school resource officer is very different from hiring a security person. Our officers undergo comprehensive background investigations, including psychological evaluations, polygraphs, and thorough reference checks. They are carefully selected, highly trained, and held to the highest standards of conduct and accountability. In closing, I want to leave you with this. Our SRO program is already a huge success. Aligned with the National Association of School Resource Officers, four-part mission, our SRO serves as a caregiver, educator, informal counselor, and law enforcer. This approach not only protects our students, but also builds trust and positive relationships. By maintaining this program, the board helps reduce district liability and manage campus risk. It's a proven model that reflects national best practices and provides real benefits to our schools. Thank you again for your time, for your trust, and your commitment to the well-being of every student and staff member in the district. I look forward to continuing our partnership.
So I think with that, we'll go out to public comment on this item. If there's anyone in the room or anyone online. Okay, if not, I'm going to come to the board. Clerk McNary, would you like to go first? You're not muted, you're muted still.
With my microphone on. Okay. I appreciate the changes. And the look at best practices and data collection and transparency and accountability that we're looking at for the future. I think having a program since 2010, and I'll just use Trustee Shama's words because we've heard him a few times tonight, is program evaluation. I think fundamentally, I'm not a person who's in favor of armed police officers on school campuses. I think they're gun-free zones. So when we have a contract that says, yes, we're going to do that, I'm looking for information that shows transparency and accountability and effectiveness for the program. And I've been asking for it since I got on the board. And from what I understand, there aren't historical logs or information like has been required in past contracts, and that are best practice according to our National Association of School Resource Officer protocols. So as a board member who values accountability and transparency, I'm not getting a clear picture. I haven't gotten a clear picture, and I don't know how we would know what's working and what's not. Based on us not collecting information over time. I don't feel like I can hold myself accountable with the way this program is going. I also don't think we're getting a great deal. Last year, we paid the same price, or we paid about $86,000 for the contract last year. But one thing that hasn't really been addressed too much is that it's a much smaller scope because the education component of the contract is no longer there, which I'm in favor of. But that's a big part of why we had this person working in our schools, was that education component. So I'll just say that I'm not comfortable. It's a no for me tonight. I think if this program is to continue, and I understand that may not be the will of the board, a no vote tonight, program evaluation is essential. I'm not in favor of guns on campuses. I'm not in favor of law enforcement having a private office on a school campus. I'm not in favor of law enforcement meeting alone with students in a private office, and I'm definitely not in favor of law enforcement on our school campus being allowed to be involved with student discipline. I think those are matters that are supposed to be left to our counselors and our teachers and our school staff. This is where I'm coming from with regard to the program. This is not my opinion of any person who's filled the role of the SRO for our district. And I do want to say thank you to you, Dr. Adamson, because I know you've worked hard to provide more transparency and more clarity and more accountability for both sides of the contract. And I do hear Chief Day, and I appreciate what he's saying as well. This is where I am for now. I'm a no. I would ask if the board would consider, if there is with a will to approve it, to just start considering other alternatives of what school safety might look like for us. Yeah, that's it for now.
Excellent. Thank you for your comments. I was gonna make a few as well. Was there anything I didn't usually respond? Okay, good. The one thing, your point on data was agreed by me, but it's also, I feel we did get some data on hours, and I wanted to kind of ask a specific question regarding that. I remember at one of the previous meetings, it was around 170 hours at Robert Down and around 50 to 60 at Forest Grove, and it came up to a traffic issue. And I know one of the things that was brought up, and I feel very strongly, is that streets are not on campus. So I wasn't sure if there was any update quickly on that.
Absolutely. There's absolute confirmation that we will not be utilizing our school resource officer for next year for any form of any kind of traffic oversight. So we have absolute confirmation, on that. I mean, that was unfortunately, yes, a situation that did occur, but, again, I have that directly from Chief, Day himself, that they have other alternatives to use in those cases.
One other just quick question on regarding, because again, a lot of the points you raised, Clerk McNary, I do agree strongly with, but the teaching one, for example, is there some understanding of how the hours were spent? I mean, I assume because part of the goal of the SRI was maintaining or meeting the school safety audit we had done, including that recommended we have one SRO on every site, if I remember correctly, which is not in our budget or our intent at the current time. But so I'm just gonna ask, how did she spend the rest of her time, if there's any way to know that?
Talking about how she was utilizing the instructional piece when we were using her for
when we were not using it, what the time was spent.
Well, remember, we did go with a slightly different approach to our instruction, around drug awareness at our elementary, campuses this year. And so we had assemblies, and then there were lessons that were given, in the classrooms for the fifth grade rooms, which is, predominantly that was geared towards fifth grade when we were doing DARE. And so, I do know that Officer Hill attended the assemblies, I know for sure at one campus, and then was there as a resource as teachers were delivering those lessons, if there was a content area that really pertained to something that she'd be able to speak to specifically. But I know that we were very cautious in that, just in general this year, because there was a lot of sort of feedback from the board that we didn't want Officer Hill, the SRO in general, taking on that role of an instructor. And really, I think that's the goal, as we're looking at new curriculum for next year and building on what we've done this year. That reminder that it is also now a requirement for us to be doing at all grade levels for next year. We really want to see her as a resource who's going to be partnering with our school site staff to really be able to provide information that's applicable to the role of an SRO when it comes to safety. So as far as for this school year, there was, her time was being taken up in other areas, and, not as much of the instruction area, but she still remained there as a resource for teachers to utilize when those discussions came up.
The other comment, again, and this is just, I've said this before, but I'll say again, I think with Officer Hill in this role, I think we've heard pretty resoundingly, again, not that she's a positive for every child on campus, because I'm sure there's some that probably don't feel comfortable speaking up on that, but a majority. At the same time, the points of program evaluation could not be more tantamount. I think when we approve this year, or if we don't, and whatever we look at next year, we need to see what the other options are. And I know that's something we've been asking for a while. So I think it's just, again, using that creativity point. So at this point, again, with Officer Hill in the role, I am supportive of renewing this contract, knowing that it's going to come with better time on campus. And us, I would like some focus maybe to be placed on the private office and time with kids in the private office, just to make sure we're.
I just speak to that, and I believe, and I was going to, pull it up to be sure in the contract, Trustee McNary, but that we had pulled all of that language out from last year because, it was very clear in the fact that our SO is not to be involved in any kind of discipline that is directly related to our school site, particularly our administrators. I know there was language in that, prior, and I thought we would pull that all out. So if it's still in there, we can make that adjustment. I know the office space was really just, we, tried to clarify that further as well, in the past to say it really is, just a desk and, access to a computer, right, for, collection of data. And then the other was, any kind of involvement. I mean, discipline and a meeting privately, no, that does not happen. There's no private meetings with our SRO and staff and students. If staff or administrators require her to come in, there would always be a staff member present, right, during that time. But I think we, try to specify that language. So if it's still in there, we'll absolutely remove it.
Those are great points for me. So yeah, I'll go around, continue the circle, so to speak. Trustee Wax.
Yeah, I'd like to echo the comments from Dr. Hazen about Officer Hill just being an awesome person. My daughter lobbied me, or she wanted to write a letter in support. And like many 11-year-olds, maybe I'll disappoint her. But it's a very strange bedfellows when going through this issue. Because apart from kind of policing on campus, PGUSD, the populace that's there, the amount of employees that are there, around 13% of the total population of Pacific Grove. So getting charged on top of the tax that we pay the police department, we are getting charged on the school end, doesn't make much sense to me. And this was echoed by a Superior Court Judge, Ladores Cordell, who served as San Jose's independent police auditor. She said cities and counties should provide resource officers to schools without charging, because it's basically a double tax. I'm sorry, the person who said it was a double taxation was actually Oxnard Union board member who described herself as an advocate for school resource officers, but told EdSource that charging districts for officers whose positions are already funded amounts to double taxation. And then also, oh, this was the strange bedfellows part. Districts should not fund officers who are already on government payrolls, said David Klein, Vice President of Communications for the California Taxpayers Association, which advocates for limiting taxes, which, as someone who might be online listening, knows that I'm not usually a member of. But if taxpayers are paying for 2 police officer positions, they should be getting 2 police officers, Klein said. They shouldn't be paying twice for the same officer. And while data collection hasn't been present in our own SRO program, I guess the more troubling part is that data collection nationally with like literally $1 billion hasn't really shown results compared to maybe reallocation of those dollars, like in Baltimore, after Baltimore County Public Schools implemented the Emotional and Behavioral Health Crisis Response and Prevention Program from 2015 to 2017, suspensions fell by 56% and disciplinary office referrals by 75% between 2015 and 2017. The program cost about $1.4 million over 2 years, with the allocation declining in year 2. Between 2016 and 2020, Baltimore City Public Schools spent an average of $11.2 million on police in schools annually, nearly 10 times the amount spent on the Emotional and Behavioral Health Crisis Response and Prevention Program. So kind of a tangent to that, Chief Day, who congratulations on the baby, said that the responsibilities were like caregiver, mentor, therapist, but having a police officer in those roles seems like not the best suited person, not because she's or they are incapable, but because if the main roles are caregiver, mentor, therapist, why not just increase the budget for therapists and mental health providers? It's just a confusing thing to me. And then I asked a question about what education topics does the SRO cover? And throughout the year, Officer Hill has been invited into the classrooms across our schools and sites to build and maintain strong relationships. She frequently reads to students and is positive. Like, we should have more readers in the school. Like, reading books is amazing and that helps with literacy, but like paying double for a person with a gun just doesn't make sense to me. It's like it's putting a round peg hole thing, whatever that analogy is. So both in terms of safety and the returns on safety, which I also have these. For anyone listening, I went down a deep hole. So if you're curious about the articles I've been reading, if you go to raindrop.io/MWAX, you could see many of the articles that I've looked at. Unfortunately, the PDFs that I saved didn't go up there. But let's see. Just in terms of safety, I believe, like 2000 through 2015, if a school had an armed security guard or officer, it was 2.5 times more likely to have a violent incident than another school controlling for population and size. So none of the outcomes, besides the perception of feeling safety in these surveys that I've looked at, have really come to fruition, at least in the data that various groups have kind of collated throughout the years nationally and internationally. So that's my line of fragmented thinking on my trouble with voting yes for this, much to the chagrin of my daughter.
Trustee Schmass.
Okay, so no traffic duties, no discipline, no education duties. Why would we have hire a person to do none of that? I don't get it. I mean, it really isn't. I agree. If we want this person to be a feel-good person, and the person that's in that role right now obviously has generated a lot of goodwill and excitement with the kids, and that's all really cool. But why does that have to be an SRO? There's no reason for it. There's really no reason. And I have a lot of experience. I mean, I was in Salinas schools for a long time, on their safety committees. There's a lot of SROs in Salinas. There's a lot of probation officers in the schools as well. And, you're really not hearing too much about how effective they are. Okay, so it all depends on your population, and if I was sitting on Salinas Union High School District Board, I might feel differently because the population that I would be dealing with would be a lot different. So the population that we're dealing with is much smaller. Why we have a SRO jumping from elementary to middle to high school, I mean, it just doesn't even make sense. I mean, what can you do in safety wise? the time management is odd to me. So I'm a no.
I'll say one, just I'm not trying to change votes at all, because I think it's really valuable that we are all bringing our perspectives here. The one thing that did come about and worries me a bit about voting no on this is that we did have that safety audit before you two were on the board, and it did point out, with the result of a lot of not universal, but community input, that there was concerns and at the sites. Agree. It's I agree with, again, many things that have been said tonight. So it's not a situation where I feel this is the best approach, but I still feel better having this in place until we have a solution. I wish we had other solutions available to us now because of that safety report, is what I'm thinking. But I really appreciate this discussion and the thoughts shared.
Can you reiterate some of the safety reports? These were community concerns?
We had an independent audit that went about, and I don't know, this might be better actually for the head of the safety committee, just to give us a quick overview, if we can, if you don't mind on that.
Yeah, so the district went through a 1-year threat and risk assessment audit of our school district, every single one of our school sites. Born from that audit is many of the things I talked about at the safety updates, as well as goes through the safety committee. I'm actually trying to pull it up as we're talking right now, so I can be a little bit more educated on the matter of an SRO or school site safety officer supervision, and I don't have it in front of me right now. But the district went through a 12-month basically assessment of our school district, and there were a lot of recommendations that came out of that. And one of them, which was mentioned tonight, was additional safety supervision on the campuses. Now, I don't know if that was directly related to additional school resource officers. I believe that there was a mention of additional, but I want to be clear that I'm not certain. It could have simply been campus supervisors or safety supervision staff. And I don't have that in front of me right now. I wanted to pull it up so I could answer you. But certainly the district invested a lot of money in going through that safety audit. So I can get back to the board on that, but it's probably not the best time to not have the information in front of me. I apologize for that.
No, it's okay. I do remember it not being specific to the type. And that was something we've discussed before, is would this be a position to be better filled by a community safety officer? But that's not something we really have the ability to put on the pedestal and weigh yay or nay against an SRO.
Well, the problem I see is when you're looking at safety, you probably want to rank your sites in priority order. You probably go with the high school first, then the middle school, then the elementary schools. And, it really, each site would need their own, some kind of safety officer, whatever you want to call them.
That's exactly what the report
Okay.
recommended.
So that's not what we have.
It's not.
And it's not even close.
Right. And funding being a major reason why that's the case.
Yeah. So if I was to vote yes on this, I'd say put her at the high school exclusively, because it would make sense to me if you're looking at safety as the primary objective of the SRO, which it is, and you're telling me no discipline, no traffic duties, no education. I guess she's walking around just talking to people.
Well, again,
it's not enough for me. I would like to, this is what I'd like to see. I'd like to see her, especially at the high school level. What I would like to see is I would like to see her teach a class on civics, not civics per se, but on the law. And what gets you in trouble and what doesn't get you in trouble. Okay, because that's something that kids don't know. Okay, and from my experience, again, working with the Department of Probation, I can tell you that kids do not know what the law is. So, that's something that she could really be or an SRO, I shouldn't say she, an SRO could be valuable in that way. Otherwise, it's.
I think that was the role she was playing more of when, she was doing DARE and I mean, even, in at other grade levels, right? But what we heard very strongly from the board last year was that not wanting her in that role of, being the one, instructing someone with, a gun and it was just really the whole perception of that. So we were very cognizant of trying to move away from that this year. Believe me, if that was a desire we wanted and there were other areas that we feel that yes, there's a need that she can share some of her knowledge and, in a positive way, that would absolutely be something, we could explore, but it's very opposite to, what was the concern that were raised.
Right. And yeah, and I'm not for police teaching drug education. I just think that those two don't even go together. But she can teach what she knows about the criminal justice system. And that's something that I think there is a need for. But as this thing is constructed, this contract, it's not allowing for that, and it's not allowing for enough real safety. I mean, we're just like, hoping that maybe she'll be there when there's a.
And I think when situations have occurred, she is though, Beth. I think, that is where we have very specific data and, if our principals were here, I know they'd be able to speak specifically to situations where, because our schools are so close together. I agree. I mean, ideally, I come from a district that was much geographically large and we had a school resource officer at every single high school. Right. But, the difference here is, it's a 2 to 3 minute drive away. And what we have seen is when, circumstances occurred, she's able to be there immediately. She's one of the first people that, are called along with 911, to really be able to respond and get there. And I think the benefit of having her versus, one of our other officers, which of course they're responding as well, is it's someone who's there who knows the site, knows the staff, knows the layout of the campus. And, that's the piece that, we've been able to then benefit from, as a result of that. And I think in each of those circumstances, the reports we hear from staff and the students on campuses, as opposed to someone who's coming in and maybe not as familiar with the campus or familiar with the staff, or maybe has a relationship with a student that we're now having to de-escalate a situation, she has that coming in already. And so, I know it sounds like we're saying, a big part of her role is it's building the relationships. And it sounds like, well, what she seems to be doing is having fun in the classrooms and reading to the students. But, what that is doing is it's connecting, right? It's ensuring that students feel, they belong. I remember Mr. Tabani, saying at one of our meetings as we were talking about, asking for input, data can be as the number of students who approach her on any given day asking for, one of her stickers. I mean, that's a student coming up to a police officer, feels safe and feels comfortable, right, in doing so because they have that relationship. And what we're building in that moment is it's not just, I see Officer Hill as almost symbolic and representative of all officers, right? So, I'm connecting with Officer Hill here, but I'm going to be able to now apply that in another situation, outside of, this, our little, PG world, right? So, I mean, it all builds, on itself. So
I get that. And I can appreciate what she brings in that way, for sure.
I think the bottom line is it's, we're looking at a little over, $80,000, $90,000, right? I mean, that's not going to give us money to repurpose to be able to apply even for a safety, security officer or a safety person at each of our school campuses. So, we've got this amount of money. This is what, we've been using it for up until now. I agree, just because we've been doing that doesn't mean that's our answer for how we proceed. But, at this point, I feel that we've got something that has been working well, and I agree. Do we have enough data to kind of prove that? I think we have a commitment from, PGPD in moving forward, on using specific, data that really helps track, the work that's being done, and is going to give us that solid data at, 2 periods during the year that they can report on. That's going to give us more than we've had in the past, right? So,
But let me do a quick just jump in just because we're at 9:53 and we need to continue this. Are we willing as a board, and maybe I will make the suggestion that we extend based on the items to 11 with the hope that we'll be done by 10:30.
Yeah.
Folks think that's reasonable? Okay, all in favor? Or I guess I have to make a motion. I'll make that motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, or we'll extend this to 11, then we can continue, I think, to Rex's question.
So, like, as part of that, the video that Chief Day sent said there will be greater transparency, but in meetings with y'all, has he outlined what those metrics or measurements are? Like, what will they be measuring?
Well, I think, they're hearing from us what we, and what's been outlined in the MOU that's part of the contract. And so they'll, we get to, I think, really dictate as to, what it is we want to be focusing on. Right. So I think, part of that will be dependent on, it'll be tracking the amount of time and what she's spending the majority of her day on based, within the parameters of what we've identified we want her role to be. And I think that's where, the data is going to be able to come in to show us, that this is the, circumstances and situations that she's had to be responding to. If there are emergency, circumstances on campus, it'll, be able to give that. How many and what kind of student situations is she having to get involved in and provide her input on. How many times is teacher or a staff member or an administrator on site having her come in to assist with a learning lesson or a small group session with students. So it really will, the data is intended to give us some sort of tracking that we can show exactly, where her time is going and where the needs are, predominantly. Because I think, even though we've outlined, her area of focus, whatever happens on any given day, on an elementary or middle or high school campus is determined on, what the circumstance of the situation is, right? So there's a little bit of flexibility that occurs in that. And I think in looking at that data, that's going to give us a sense of, where the needs are for each of our individual schools. It's going to be different, I think, at each site.
Right. I mean, the other part, going to just kind of the taxpayer portion of this, you're saying that she responds quickly. Any police officer in our city should first of all know our school sites. They're the major places of business and population in our city. And even if they were all the way down at the police station, I imagine they could get up to the high school pretty quick. So like, I just feel like it should be provided by the community, because that's what police do. I just don't understand why this trend has fallen on the school districts. And I mean, I don't know their situation too much, but I looked at the city budget. They had like $31 million in reserves. I get that their budgets are different, but we have way smaller reserves. So like, basically, they could pay for this position with the interest gained from a year of their reserves account, whereas it may not pay for a separate program, but it's a decent chunk of our budget. And just to go back to something, so I don't confuse anyone or anything. Well, this will be inexact, this will be paraphrased, but I think there was like basically a large likability of SROs nationally by kids and administrators. But I think when kids were asked who they would go to as a trusted adult, the SRO was always much lower than other positions on campus. So I think we need to build more adults and trusted adults, but it seems like there's some sort of disconnect, at least nationally, with police officers. And then, let's see, little evidence on whether SROs can stop an active shooter or lower deaths or injuries when a school shooting happens. In 197 instances of gun violence at U.S. schools since '99, SROs intervened successfully in 3 instances. A recent study found that among all schools that experienced a school shooting between 1999 and 2018, the number of injuries and deaths was actually about 2.5 times higher in schools that had an SRO. So even it sort of seems like kidnapping. Like as a parent, you're very worried about kidnapping, but it actually no, that's a horrible analogy. But basically, either monetarily or what the intended goal is in terms of safety, there doesn't seem a clear correlation to what we would be spending.
So just a quick point on that, just because of the data side of me, is that correlation versus causation though, right? Like,
yeah,
I would argue if you're putting an SRO or a school has multiple SROs, they're more likely to be afraid. And although that's not always the case, but they're more likely to be afraid of school violence potentially because of whether it's populace based or things like that. Like, I mean, there were comments made about other school districts having SROs for different purposes. So I agree. It's one of those, I don't think it's going to necessarily always, I mean, there've been plenty of instances where it hasn't helped. Bring back examples. It's actually been a negative to have an SRO campus in time of school shooting. So I do recognize that. The thing I'd like to just bring up to the board here, kind of as the decision point, is I do think there's 2 possibilities we have. Just let me just tell you, then if there's more comment, we can still discuss. I just want to kind of provide a summary wrapper. Like we could say we want the contract to come back based on some of the comments Beth made, or we could. It's sounding like the board is more like maybe this is the time for SROs not to be an option or not to be renewed at our school site. So I just want to bring that up and say we should move towards a decision, right? Because I think it's an important one to make.
2 quick questions. Josh, is the money that we pay for SRO, is that specifically outlined for some sort of security or it's just okay? And then the second, in terms of this returning, if we did not pass this right now and we had time to actually kind of create some sort of more bespoke contract, it doesn't have to come back like next June. It could come back throughout the year. Is that right?
The contract is for the year. We would have to have it in place, beginning August. I think what the dates on it, is it August or July? But I mean, essentially for the beginning of the school year. So, we just wouldn't have a contract in place. And I think we'd have to at least give, PGPD notice, right? Because they would have to make other plans then for an employee of theirs, right? Yeah.
But just, I believe that the city of Pacific Grove doesn't really have a lot of money to pay for that SRO. So, that's why I mean, it used to be we divided the money and now we're paying more for it, but
I think it's half and half.
Is it half?
Approximately, yeah. We're even less than half. And I think it gets trouble because I mean, I agree. Every point you said, I agree with completely. This should be paid for by the city. We get in this like kind of finger pointing game, then well, you should pay for it. No, you should pay for it. And then we end up with potentially nothing, which again is a valid potential solution based on this discussion. But all your facts there, I think, do ring true. It has been something since I got on the board. And as I've mentioned, I don't think the SRO is the right piece for this position, but I do worry based on that risk and safety audit if we don't have something in place for the school year, just because I feel like that's not necessarily being responsive. But again, this is my personal views, and I think this is something we're coming to as a board, which is really important.
Josh just wants to read something out from that report that he found. Yeah.
Before I read this, I think what's important to note I've just been trying to go through a lot of the surveys that were done during that 1-year process, and this line just stands out to me, and it's reflective of staff and community input. Collaborative efforts with the police department, including a shared resource officer and campus supervisors, were underscored as essential resources by staff. So my only concern with the conversation tonight is that the district does not have a viable alternative tonight moving forward for something that's been identified as an essential resource by staff and by families. That's just the input I wanted to provide.
I think the concern I have with that safety audit and us now relying on it so much with this SRO aspect is if I had any idea that it was going to come back and tell us we need one for every campus, I would have said up front, full disclosure, my personal point of view, and let's check in with the board. Is this something we want to include in our safety planning moving forward? I don't think we're tied to it because we chose to do it. I think we're not sure what's next. I mean, I think it's, I mean, we have the ability to pivot and go a different direction at any time. And I'll say for myself, getting that report back and seeing SROs pitched for every campus is in line with the National Association of School Resource Officers best practices, but I don't know if that's even, you know, how we feel as a district and a board that's best to keep our kids safe. So, yeah, maybe we're ready for a vote. I don't know. I feel like we've kind of all gone around and it's like a yes or a no on the contract and then discussions about what that looks like after we vote.
So maybe we vote on the contract as is, and then we can discuss about what the next steps would be based on that. Okay, so does anyone want to make a motion on this contract? If I would normally, but if I'm guessing there's not going to be a second for it as is, so we'll let this contract potentially go and say, what do we want to do as a board? Do we want something brought back on June 26th as our last chance, or do we want to deal with this throughout the year? And that's the question. Deal with this as the year starts without a contract in place.
Well, is there any union contract or any union language requiring some sort of SRO or no?
There is not, no.
There's no requirement for us to do this. Like I said, it's basically just on past practices and the need for us to have some form of safety recommended. But again, I will say I don't think it was SRO at all sites. It was community, you know, some community supervisors. It doesn't just have to be SRO.
Yeah, and that's something I would be in favor of.
Campus safety and campus supervisor.
Right.
That's fair use.
Yeah.
It wasn't specific to SRO office.
I mean, maybe that's our options and we prioritize a site and, you know, we have an open campus at the middle school. It's not fully fenced. We have an open campus at the high school. It's not fully fenced. I mean, I feel like it's an opportunity for us to analyze and figure out what to do next. I don't have a plan. I just know that I'm not comfortable with this moving forward.
So yeah, again, I think this plan's done. I think we didn't make a motion, so we just need to decide now. Do we want something brought back on the 26th? Whether it's do we want to direct staff to bring something back? Whether it's another contract that deals with only the high school, or do we want it brought back? Do we want a community, or do we want to say right now we'd like to start the school year without a contract in place? All three of those, I think, are options.
I think more basically trusted adults, especially at the high school, some sort of program would be good to integrate.
Are we trying to direct staff that we want that brought back on the 26th so that it can be implemented by the school year? Or do we want to say we're going to just let this one lapse and we're going to reconsider moving forward? I mean, we didn't have a decision point to make, and I think we need to give board direction.
Well, yeah, if a program could be developed or a position could be developed by the 26th, that'd be good to have.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to be able, I mean, just in all, you know, full transparency and openness. I mean, I think what we're agreeing to now is you know, if we're not going to say yes to the contract, then, you know, I let PGPD know. And then, I mean, we just know we're starting the year out with, you know, not having this program in place. And I think that gives us time to maybe, you know, look at other considerations. But I think, you know, even with $80,000 or $90,000, I mean, even one individual person, right, it's still not enough to get even one campus supervisor to, you know, pay according to, you know, the salary that, you know, we have. So it would just be a matter, I think we would look at, you know, different options. Are there some volunteer, you know, options we can maybe sort of look into starting at each of our sites where, you know, we, you know, have just more adults, you know, on campus. Yeah, we'll look at that, but we're probably not going to have something in place, you know, for the beginning of the school year. And I just want to be clear and open, you know, on that. That's what you're agreeing to. Yeah.
Was anyone supportive of the idea of coming back with that only high school SRO? I mean, I think the answer is probably no as a board, but is that something we want to consider? Brought up, and if the answer is no, okay.
Do that right now.
Then I think we've made decision. I think we go ahead and move on from this, and we will have to reconsider at a later date, what we want this program or a replacement program to look like. Okay. So now we are on to item N, the architect of record. Thank you guys so much for sticking this out. I'm sorry that it's taken so long, but we've had lots of important things to get through. So this is on Assistant Superintendent Jordan.
Thank you, President Dr. Hazen. So tonight I'm bringing forward this is the architect of record contract with Derby Castellanos Architects. As mentioned at a prior board meeting, the district went through an extensive request for qualifications and proposals process back in February that totaled 9 qualified architectural firm proposals that were reviewed by an internal committee. The apparent firm that was presented at the board meeting in April was Derby Castellanos. The district will contract with an architect of record to assist, as we talked about tonight, the programming and development of our facilities master plan. In particular, what we're bringing forward tonight is a master agreement with that firm, and then their initial amendment to that master agreement. So basically an initial scope of work, which is in the cover page to this document. But yes, what they're going to do for us is start immediately on the programming and design of our priority 1 project. So example, the handicap accessible ramp down to the baseball stadium as one example. There's many in the priority 1 as you looked at Appendix A in the facilities master plan. Also related to that, I think it came up a lot tonight as it relates to modernization of classroom spaces and what we plan to do with certain campuses. We can go through the process of programming and design of our interior spaces and bring back renderings to this board to look at what our spaces may look like in the future. In particular related to, like, let's say, for example, the middle school. It's a building that's been around for a very long time. Certainly, we are going to have middle school students for a very long time, and we need to look at the modernization of those spaces to coincide with the educational programming that exists at those sites, at that site right now, as one example. So as I mentioned, in the cover page here, second page of the cover page on page 945, under their first amendment, this is task 1, 2, 3. Everything from project initiation to the stakeholder engagement meetings, and then the phase 1 program document that they will build for us. I do have the president of Derby Castellanos here tonight if the board does have any questions related to this process. But I'm presenting this tonight for approval. This is Fund 21 Measure B. This is for a master agreement, which is of 3 years, and the amendment number 1 tonight, which is the board is approving the master agreement and amendment 1 tonight. We will bring every amendment forward to this body as we progress through the process. But we do need a master agreement in place.
I'll open this item up to public comment. Thank you for the presentation. None online, none in the room. So I'll go to the board if there were any questions for the item.
Just thank you, Assistant Superintendent Jordan, for the background on the process for selection for the architect. I think it makes it really easy as a decision maker to understand what we did to get here and feel better about moving forward. So I appreciate it. And I'm excited. This is exciting. Like, we're going to start making moves. So getting an architect and getting a construction manager, but that's a big deal. So yeah, thank you.
With that, could I get a motion on this item if anyone would like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the architect of record contract with Derivi. How do we say that, Josh?
Yeah, it's Derby Castellanos.
Derby Castellanos Architects.
Okay.
Thank you.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Okay, so motion was made by Clerk McNary, seconded by Trustee Wax. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It passes 4-0. So now on to item O, Construction Management Measure B program contract with Sonio Inc.
Correct. And similarly, as I just expressed, we're bringing forward a master agreement tonight with Sonio. They are providing a master agreement for us for 3 years worth of construction management and program management. And I want to differentiate between the two. Right now, we're moving through the process with our architect of record of program management, building out a potential construction program for our school district. And you move from program management by the program manager into construction management. So they work through the design process with our architect firm in our district. They attend all of our community engagement meetings that we will have related to some of the priority 2 projects and the priority 3 projects. They are the responsible party for doing everything from bidding out the projects, awarding of projects, bringing all of that to the board, managing the bond funds for us, providing fiscal reporting to this body, and then through our escape management system, as well as program timelines and scheduling. So there's a lot that goes into this, but I want to differentiate between the two. So program management, that's kind of the start of the process to get us to construction, and then they convert into construction management, still managing the program, but also managing the construction of the projects that this district's going to be moving forward with. And as mentioned, we're looking to, potentially double our bond dollars with state funding. That is a lot of projects. That is a heck of a lot more than our good friend, Director Anderson, can manage on his own. And I think he's been doing a heck of a job with Measure D moving forward. But now that we're moving into Measure B, modernization and potential new construction, having a program and construction management firm on site that deals with this on a daily basis, and our professionals, I think is a good move for this school district, as well as the continued reporting to this body is very important. And having folks that are skilled in this area, I think, is why we're bringing this forward. And it was definitely something that came out through our community engagement and from this board. So with that, I'm presenting their master agreement tonight and their amendment 1 for approval.
Anyone in the public that would like to comment? You have one?
Evening. We're good. Okay, members of the board, good evening. Just wanted to introduce myself. I'm Dustin Connor with Asonio. I'm a PG alumni, and now I'm a parent of a future first grader and fourth grader in the district. So excited to be part of this program. We're very grateful and excited that you guys are going to consider us for program and construction manager for this effort. I think it's awesome that you guys are looking into a construction manager. There's a lot of projects and a lot of campuses and a lot of years and just there's tons to do with this thing. And so when you bring us on, we can take that on and take that on for the district, and then you guys can go back to your core values, which is educating the students and getting kids through school here. So like I said, we're excited about all this. My role will be program manager, so I'll be working with probably everybody in this room for working through the process for the coming years. And then we've also partnered with Brailsford and Dunleavy, who's a nationwide firm. And so with them as our support, and then with our local touch, I think you're getting a really good team here for the district. So again, just appreciate the consideration for the recommendation, and look forward to working with everybody on this thing. And yeah, thanks for your time.
Thank you so much for your comments. With that, no other public comment. I will go back to the board. Mr. Schmoss.
We're lucky to have Asonio.
Okay, with that, I will go ahead and make a motion to approve the contract with Asonio Inc. Can I get a second?
Second.
A motion was made by myself and seconded by Trustee Wax. All in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed? It passes 4-0. On to item P, contract for services with KBA DocuSys.
This is me. This is the 4th year. Prior to my tenure, the district was doing it every 3 to 4 years. We do an RFP for copier services for our school district. So what we're bringing forward tonight is a new vendor. They have worked with the district in the past, but what it does provide for the district is first and foremost, new machines with higher output, color machines, and at a discounted rate, meaning that we actually are paying less than we were with our current contract. So I feel really good bringing this forward. We did follow the normal process of doing a request for proposals. They came out as the lowest bidder, but also the one that provided us with the most services moving forward, specifically tied to the number of copies that we produce at each one of our school sites. In the past, we had to set aside a budget for anything in excess of, and we think that we've kind of captured that in excess of within this base contract this year. So we anticipate some cost savings moving forward.
Excellent. I will go back to the public, see if there's anyone online that would like to make a comment. No, none online, none in the room. So I will go back to the board. Anyone? I'll just say quickly, thank you for the cost savings aspect. I think that's always a good thing to remind us, is just what it might have been last year and what it would be this year. So now I'm excited, even though it's just copying, I'm excited to move ahead with this item. Anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the contract for services with KBA DocuSys.
Excellent. And this, can I get a second?
I'll second.
Oh, I heard Beth as a trustee Shamas first. So, motion was made by trustee Wax, seconded by trustee Shamas. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Not, it passes 4-0. So now we're on to Pro X construction contract again back. This is actually, sorry, to Mr. Anderson.
Good evening, board. I'm very excited to bring yet another Measure D project to you tonight. This project is quite exciting because if you notice during the facilities master plan, there was one campus that was rated the least favorable, and we're going to rectify that with this project. So this project involves exterior painting, replacement of rain gutters, wood rot repairs, and we were going to do just kind of a facelift to the bathrooms, but after looking at them, we decided they need much more than that. So we've increased the scope to include all new plumbing, sewer lines, complete replacement of the original tile. And we found that a lot of the fixtures in the building were actually the originals, and I believe that's from 1956. So this is an exciting and well overdue project that I'm hoping you will approve tonight.
Thank you so much for the presentation. I will go back to the public. No one online, no one rushing up in the room. To the board. No concerns. If not, thank you for this. I'm again excited to see these Measure D funds so that we can get excited to get started on Measure B. So I will go ahead and make a motion to approve this contract with ProX Construction. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Motion made by myself, seconded by trustee Wax. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? If not, it passes.
Thank you very much.
4-0. Thank you very much. So we're on to proposed board calendar. Any updates? for
Yes,
us?
so just one adjustment that I am proposing and we have made on the calendar for your approval tonight is to adjust and change June 26th to a regular meeting as opposed to a special meeting. There'll be 2 items on that agenda that we have to approve at a regular meeting. So there's a reason for that. Remember that will also be our governance session as well. And I think just it's going to be a really short agenda, which will allow us plenty of time for that too.
Perfect. And because it's on that Tuesday, Thursday, that makes it fit right in. So do we have any public comment on the proposed board calendar and changes? Seeing none, I don't know why I was looking at the board, but I could tell out of the backside of my head. Coming to the board.
Just a comment on something that I mentioned to Lucero and she had no idea. So, but back in the day, we did not have any board meetings in July. I don't think we put it in policy or anything. That was just something we did. So, when she suggested I meet with Linda in July, I said, oh, no, it's July. So anyway, I just wanted to check with you guys to make sure that are you okay with that or Linda?
I think that's the reason we removed the meeting in July. You know, we've always had one up until this year. It's the first year we don't have one. And the idea was for that reason, you know, trustee Shamas to go dark. So,
well, it's historical.
Okay, good to know.
You know, but I'm not, that was just something I would want to run by everybody because if you guys feel differently, it was just, Jessie Bray brought it up.
The Jessie Bray conference room?
Yes.
Jessie Bray, yeah.
Yes, she said that we should have 1 month of July that we have no meetings. That was 1 month we did not, because it made sense, you have your June meetings, start again in August.
This gives everyone a break.
Yeah, everybody could count on July, no meetings.
But that was the goal with it this year. I didn't realize that it used to be the practice. I
Yeah,
think-
it was the practice.
I believe the last 2 years at least, right? There's been a meeting in July. No? I know last year we had one.
We added, there was meetings that were added due to
Oh,
contracts. and so
COVID
forth,
or
right?
something.
Okay,
at
maybe
one
that's
time,
what it
but
is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not, emergencies, of course, happen.
Exactly. And I think the key thing is if there's decisions that need to be made in that time, we would do that, but
Yes.
I think if it's been working.
As a general.
Yeah, why change it? And the other side, I will say, we definitely have been having later meetings than I would like, but I think like has been said, one of the main. Maybe the only fix is to have more meetings if we don't want to have as late meetings. So I don't think July will take off the pressure from the rest of the year. But I just think we have to be a little more creative about how we space our meetings out and maybe make sure the special meetings get used when they need to be. So I would be in favor of keeping July off the books, but we'll probably have to rethink about special meetings for the new year. Just to.
Well, I do remind us is, I mean, this has been just for the last two, and typically I think historically May and June are just longer meetings because there's so much. I mean, the LCAP and the budget alone, right, take up so much. But I mean, I think we were doing pretty well for a while there in the other months. But let's continue to monitor it, right? And we can, always adjust that as the board desires.
Okay. So we do have a change. So we do need a motion on that. The new calendar. It was the 26th will become a regular meeting rather than a special meeting because we have some contracts on it that need to be approved.
Okay.
I'll make the motion to approve the updated calendar.
Perfect. Can I get a second?
A second.
Okay, motion made by trustee Wax and made by clerk McVeigh, saying how we all feel. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? If not, we are on to future agenda items. It happens.
Yeah.
Any future agenda items that we would like to make note of?
Yes, there are.
Yeah, I have one. I'll just bring up
Okay.
the follow on from this contract. I think we need to think about what this looks like with the school safety plan and what we can do, given the fiscal status of the district. So I just think that needs to be a future agenda item, probably not to fit on the 26th due to timing, but probably in the beginning of the year.
I think we should look at policy on evaluations. And
When you say evaluations, program evaluations or just?
yes,
yeah.
like, we should look at crafting some policy that guides us so that we are evaluating new programs as they, that becomes part of the routine, that we start a new program or we start a new anything that we build in an evaluation tool for that program. And then also we're going to look at policies on the dogs or animals.
Yeah, so we'll add that to the policy committee. In fact, both of those would be
Yeah.
perfect for our next policy committee meeting. Right?
Yeah.
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 Perfect.
Is there something else?
One thing just to put on that, because I think it falls in, is the idea of school pets. So we're talking about like both there's personal pets, but also we're talking about school classroom pets. Yeah, but there might be roles for both. Yeah.
So, animal policy.
I think there is an animal on campus policy already. Yeah.
Okay.
We'll just want to revisit it. Okay, for the policy committee. I like both of those on there. Any other items? If not, we have one more item and then 2 items for policy committee. I will go ahead and adjourn the meeting at 10:27 with the next regular meeting on the 26th.